look at that wall behind you. Look at that little girl's face. I know you've seen it. But you know what she's never going to be able to see? She's never going to be able to see the simple wonder of a leaf in her hand, because there's not going to be any trees. Now think about that.
Also,
Despair!
not chaos.
We got deep. We're already so deep.
That's what you said.
Oh my God. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Science Fiction Remnant. I am not an evil robot.
I am
Robert.
Chaos Dewey 2.0.
Chaos Dewey. Jesus. And I'm a somewhat ticked off biologist from Australia.
AKA Lowell, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Well, no. I'm nowhere near as Machiavellian as Lowell. We'll get into that though.
I think that honestly, Ray, like, what do you think? Like, if I will be on a biodome, it will be more like the comedy biodome, right?
Probably, yeah.
Which is a great episode that if you haven't watched, you should watch the movie and then watch our episode.
Yeah, so I want to say thank you to all the listeners. We kind of took a short break. Life gets in the way, but we're back. We're back, and thank you for waiting for us. We'll have a lot more episodes coming soon. So there is a question in the air. I think I see it.
What have you guys been watching? You've had whole 3 weeks to watch stuff. Have you watched it? Or has life been getting in the way of that too?
Possibly.
Well, if you think about it and you look at it in a way, life is an obstacle.
Yeah. Life is an obstacle for living. Yes.
Kind of like the domes are for corporations in this movie. Okay, so going back to the question, I did a rewatch of Continuum, and yes, not the Continuum with Rachel Nichols, which that's an amazing show. It is the web series Continuum. If you want to get more details as to what that is, just go back to our back catalog where we have a great discussion with the writer and director of that. It was a web. Yes, it was a web series. I want to say is dear and near to my heart. It was. It reminds me back on the days when YouTube was young, and me as a sci-fi fan and in search of sci-fi content, I stumbled against this web series. And it was amazing. And if you are of the era that I am from, you're very familiar when YouTube started. They have a lot of web series, and that was like a thing. Everybody had a web series going on, and it's a shame they don't have those anymore because I kind of enjoy. And I think if they bring web series back, I think they'll have a great success because today series as short as web series will make it killing because that's basically what most people are looking for. And that's the reason why TikTok is so famous because they have so short clips that people are just going through. So I think if web series come back, I think that they could be a major hit because that's pretty much what people are needing. Short content, not like us.
No,
not like us. We are like
there's a continuum, and the continuum is on. Oh, hang on, it is on this end, and we're up here on the long format end.
Yeah.
They're not like us. Dun, 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 dun.
So you guys know, I watch
things is not like the others.
Exactly. Just so you guys know, I watched the web series on YouTube, and I went and watched the one that we covered for our episode, which was the movie on Tubi. And yeah, I enjoyed them both. The one on Tubi, if you are not a fan of web series, I'll probably recommend you go watch the one on Tubi, which is actually recut into a movie. But yeah, I enjoy both. And if you want to know more about it, just go back to our catalog and listen to that episode. We had a great time talking to the writer and director of that. And that's all I've been watching.
That was a good episode.
Oh yeah.
What about you, Mr. Chaos? What have you been doing?
Well, I've been doing a lot of Cyberpunk 2077. I
Have
did
you
a
been playing
rewatch.
the new DLC?
No,
Just the
not yet. I've been
vanilla.
playing more Nintendo Switch too, but that's no sci-fi. I don't think Mario Kart is sci-fi. And what else? I actually did watch a movie to break the curse, and I
Oh,
wanted you guys to watch it too, because it's a good movie when you look at it from a satirical point. Life Force.
oh, the curse! The curse!
I broke the curse. I break the curse. I break the curse.
We have a new curse actually. We still haven't managed to record it.
Yeah.
And yeah,
We'll get
hopefully
to
we
that
never
one day.
will.
Oh come on! It's a good one.
I
We'll get
also
there
been
one day.
rewatching Doctor Stone, catching up. I
Oh,
watched the whole
great.
new season.
Oh yeah.
Oh my god, that's so freaking awesome!
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey, weren't you playing another sci-fi game?
Another sci-fi. Oh,
Sword
I've been
Art
playing.
Online?
I've been well. I tried to play it, but I was disappointed on the product. Sword Art Online for PS4.
Wap, 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 wap.
So I mean, no wonder it was a flop. I'm waiting for the SAO for the VR. I've watched videos of like demo the guy has. It looks amazing, but it's an empty world still. But I cannot wait for. I think the gaming industry right now is stagnated, and it's about to experience some crazy change that is going to change video gaming forever. I think that is about to happen, and that's about it. I mean, I've been consuming more stuff, but it's not really sci-fi.
Blasphemy.
I no, like, you can ask Robert. Like one of my favorite genres that is on sci-fi is historical fiction, which I've been watching one about Edo Japan, which is freaking fun. If you guys want to know about it, hit us up in the Discord server, and I'll get you
Yeah.
the links, guys. What about you,
We,
Ray?
we we do discuss things other than sci-fi on the Discord server, but of course, sci-fi is the main topic. But we're happy to discuss other things as well.
Yep.
So, what have I been watching? Well, do shorts about how much of a death world Australia is? Do they count as sci-fi? I mean, I've discovered things about my country I didn't know that scared shit out of me. I mean, the list is long.
You could say this is Space Odyssey meets Prometheus.
Yes, something like that. I'm still wondering why I'm still alive.
Didn't it tell you aliens came from Australia?
Something similar, yeah.
I wouldn't pass. I
mean-
wouldn't put it past that though.
I mean, we have like cassowaries, which are basically dinosaurs.
No, you guys basically when you get bored, you just make another type of monster that can kill you just by looking at you.
Yeah, well, I mean, they found the Newcastle big boy, which is now the most venomous spider in the world,
Yeah.
which is
And it's like this
new-
size. It's like this size. So it's like when you get to notice it, probably it's too late.
Yeah, about this. In fact, I think I came across one of them about a decade ago when I was pulling rocks out of a
Oh,
and yeah, I took photos of it, but it's on my old phone. I wish I still had it. It was scary as fuck. Like that reaction you first had when you first saw the xenomorph in Alien, it was very much like that without the drool.
What would you have done if that thing is looking down at you and just go like start going to you?
If it had run at me, I would have died, and I would not be here.
You wouldn't even try to run. I'm running.
But it's twice as big as the Sydney funnel web, which is the previous most poisonous spider in the world, or venomous. And yeah, it's big and hairy and scary and
Look,
from
everybody.
right?
Look, everybody. If you want to put Australia in a personification when it comes to danger in the wildlife, Australia is that motherfucker on the commercials that goes, "But wait, there's more."
Oh wow.
but yeah. So I've been binging those and staying indoors.
Stay indoors.
It's the thing that I watched in the last couple of weeks, which I wanted to bring up, was a rewatch of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan,
Oh yeah.
which is such a good movie. Khan!
Yes.
Can't go past
I
it.
don't know why. I don't know
Such a
why. Can gives me vibes of Flash Gordon when I watch The Wrath of Khan.
It does have that feel.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it's because of like the Romulans, how they are portrayed on the Wrath of Khan. They are grand, and when you look at Flash Gordon, when he goes to a space, it's like a palace in space too. It's everything is grand too. So I would think that it's that, but it gives me like vibes right away. Like I remember Flash Gordon. With think of
Well, Khan is a gentleman villain. Is the way
an
I like to put
an elegant villain.
Elegant villain, yeah, that's probably a better word. Yeah, but he's got that elegance about him, even though he's a dastardly doer, and that's particularly unusual in villains, which is why.
Not only that, but the most fucked up part is when you get a villain that is doing something heinous and bad, and yet when he gives you his argument, you cannot feel you feel like you don't have a counter argument to them.
Well, I mean, a lot of villains should be very smart. I mean, to actually achieve their ends, they have to be like almost evil geniuses, and an evil genius should be able to argue rings around you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was written that way, and even though he lost in the end because he wasn't thinking three-dimensionally, he was elegant all the way to the end. But yeah, that's probably one of the biggest regrets I have about not being involved in season 1 of Science Fiction Remnant, and that is not being on the Wrath of Khan episode.
Yeah, that was great.
I love that movie. In fact, I might go watch it again right now. I'll catch you later. No, I wouldn't do that yet. We've got things to do here.
Oh, lots to talk about. Okay, so should we go into the next segment? We are Science Fiction Remnant.
This is the Funny Science Fiction Podcast.
We are the Caribbean Science Fiction Network.
We are Monorats.
We are One Accord Level 2 Podcast.
This is Jesse from Sudden But Inevitable and Open Pike Night.
This is Sci-Fi.
And if you're new to the show, this is a segment where we highlight the hashtag This is Sci-Fi. And what is that, you ask? It is our attempt to unite the sci-fi community as a whole. You would find the Star Trek community, you will find the Star Wars community, you'll find all the communities separate. But when you join in the This is Sci-Fi, you unite all of the communities together. And that was the whole idea. And there has been so many things. The journey has been amazing. I remember back when we started this whole idea, and it came from that need. I would go in there and I would try to reach out and I would find all the different communities, but I always wished there was a way that you can unite all the communities together into just one community. And that's where the idea came on, what if we use the hashtag and the hashtag This is Sci-Fi? And I see many things. And if you have listened to our show long enough, you'll hear me speak about scenarios that we have encountered that they make me so happy. Like, for example, there has been a particular fan of this particular franchise that is in love with this franchise, but he did not like the other franchise at all. And, we all have, it's okay if you don't like something. Then came the This is Sci-Fi hashtag. A fan of the other franchise posted a post and added it, This is Sci-Fi hashtag to that post. As you know, we're fans. We love to talk about the stuff we like. And this person that I know about was read the post from this other fan for the other franchise, and he felt the passion, because that's something we have as sci-fi fans. Once we have something we like, we have a passion for it, and that was just enough to pique the interest of the person reading the post. And now he found another sci-fi love. And he loved both franchises now. So that's the kind of thing that we if you want to put it in short words, it's a way to share the love. So if you are a fan of any sci-fi, you're already posting about it because you can't stop talking about it. I mean, we have a podcast for it because we can't stop talking about it. So you're going to post, and all you got to do is add the hashtag this is sci-fi to the end of your post, and that's it. That's all you got to do. If you are a creator, any kind of creator of sci-fi, it could be a book, it could be a movie, it could be a podcast, it could be anything. You're already posting about it because you're promoting your stuff. All you got to do is add the hashtag this is sci-fi to the end of that post. And then all of us will just follow that. And we would normally, following the hashtag, we get exposed to things that we normally would not get exposed to and discover new loves. And if you follow this show long enough, you know we have a lot of likes in sci-fi. Look at our list. So we're like, what, 200 plus episodes and more to come. So I love when I discover that new thing because I read the passion on a fan's post or a creator's post about their sci-fi thing. So if you don't know how to do it, all you got to do is just follow the hashtag and post to the hashtag. And we have different avenues so you can join in. We also have chats and different social media so you can join in. All you got to do is just reach out to us, or we'll let you in. The easiest way, there's two things, right? If you want to make your voice be heard, we have a hotline. And the hotline is 1-305-563-6334. And just leave your comments in there about your favorite thing. And if you allow us, we'll go ahead and post that on our future episodes and we can have a discussion about it. You can also join our Discord. That would be the most direct way to join in the community. And the description is in the show notes. So I have two announcements. And I am really, really excited about these announcements. I got an email, which, sorry to say, I thought it was spam.
Only you, Robert.
Yeah, well, I have so much spam, right? So I do apologize to what I'm up, the people who I'm going to name very soon. Apologize for that. But luckily for me, I was able to get to the email in time and realize that if you're familiar with FeedSpot, and you guys can go in listening, just put in feedspot.com. They have a community of podcasts that you can listen to podcasts in there. We're actually in there as well. And I got an email from FeedSpot naming Giancarlo, Ray, and Robert as top 100 sci-fi influencers of 2025. We are Nano. We're number 97. Well, 96.
Yeah, we went up one while we weren't recording. That was weird.
I thought that list would be static, but it's amazing to me, right? And we have so many years in this, and I feel very happy not to be in that list among names like Felicia Day and Jonathan Frakes. Not because of that, but because someone has acknowledged the hard work and dedication that we have put in the show. And that's the only reason why I am so excited to be on that list. And I want to really thank FeedSpot because they have recognized us, as influencers, and it feels really nice.
I think we also need to thank our listeners because they're the ones that not only have been listening and coming back, but they've also shared their enjoyment of the pod and got other people to listen. So thank you guys for sharing us around.
Yes.
That sounds wrong in so many ways.
So yeah, I was going to go to that too. The listeners, you have no idea how thankful we are to be recognized in that way, and it's because of you. And that leads me to the second announcement, also from FeedSpot. And by the way, you guys can go into Google and type in FeedSpot top sci-fi influencers in 2025, and you'll get to the, I believe it's the first search result, and you'll see the list. Because there's a lot of people there that I do follow myself that there are top influencers in 2025. The second announcement, you can also get to it by typing FeedSpot top sci-fi podcasts. And this is something that Gio, our very own Captain Chaos, posted on our socials. When we found out, we were so excited because you type that and our image comes up right in the search results. We are number one. Oh, and thank you. Thank you for that. And I echo Captain Chaos sentiments when he said that feels really nice. And again, I have to thank the audience. I have to thank the fans. I have to thank you guys for listening to us for so many years. And to be able to be recognized, because that's, to be honest with you, that's one of the things that most podcasters deal with, is when they are not recognized because of all the work that goes involved into making this a thing, and all the money that it goes into making a thing like this. You get discouraged, and that's why so many podcasts go off the air, because you don't get recognized. You don't get. So I want to say again, thank you to the fans, because this is one of the reasons that keep us going. To get to this point, and knowing that it's because of you guys. So I really want to thank you guys for that. We really appreciate you guys coming in every week and listening to us, even when we take a break.
Did you see this Apple rating 5 out of 5?
Yeah.
Do you find it amusing, guys, that the moment we get busy with life and stop recording for a bit, we suddenly get accolades? Is it like the universe trying to drag us back in again? It's like, it's a black hole and you cannot escape.
I think it's somebody telling us not to quit.
Maybe we should take a vacation. We come back and we're famous and we don't know what the hell happened.
And the sad thing is, I thought it was a spam. It actually went to my spam folder. I found it.
Peanut.
So yes, there's that. So thank you so much. And now we have, I think, Ray, you have one more thing, right?
Oh yeah, I do. So this we've been covering a lot of sci-fi stuff in this is sci-fi, obviously, because it's sci-fi. But this is sci-fi-esque, but it's actually science. Well, it's science on the cutting edge. I'd hesitate to call it sci-fi fact, because they're early discoveries, so it's not something that we can say for sure there's life on this planet just because we found CO2. But from physics.org, a very renowned website, news from just 3 days ago, from the time of recording. Webb telescope directly observes exoplanet CO2 for the first time. So if you're aware of the Webb telescope, it's like the next level up from the one that we've been viewing the universe with for the last 20 years. Trying to remember the name of it. Why won't it come to me?
I failed you.
Hubble.
Yeah.
Hubble.
So Hubble's was the bee's knees for a couple of decades. Now we have Webb, which is like version 2 of Hubble, and Webb is just freaking amazing. The amount of science knowledge and technology and technique that went into that thing is just astounding. And now, not only have we worked out that there's exoplanets because we've viewed them passing across in front of are the stars. So we go, oh, there's planets there because we can see them blocking out the light from the star. But now with Webb, we can actually view the planets themselves, and we're able to see their atmospheres. So obviously you've got a planet which is solid, and there's a little layer on the outside which is about as thick as the skin of an apple, which is the atmosphere. And we're able, with Webb, we're able to zoom in on that and actually look at what sort of gases make up that atmosphere, which is freaking amazing from here, which is, these planets are multiple light years away. The closest would be, 4 light years, which is not an insignificant distance. But there's other ones that are even further. But the one that they're looking at here, I would say 4 light years, but this one's 130 light years from Earth. So, I mean, they're looking at HR 8799 system, and they're looking at young planets, and they're detecting carbon dioxide in their atmospheres. So carbon dioxide is one of the key indicators that life would be possible on that planet. They're also picking up methane, which is another a bio-produced gas. So, like we all fart methane. You, me, the cows, everybody. So,
How do they find humans?
It doesn't directly indicate that there's life on these planets, but it hints that there could be. So this is really exciting stuff, folks. It's, we live in the future. This is like science fiction becoming science fact. So well worth checking out. It says here, the key piece of proof: carbon dioxide is essential for life on Earth, making it a key target in the search for life elsewhere. Because CO2 condenses into little ice particles in the deep cold of space, its presence can shed light on planetary formation. Jupiter and Saturn are believed to have first formed from the bottom-up process, which is a bunch of tiny ice particles came together into a solid core and then sucked in the gas around it to grow into giants. So this new discovery of a key piece of proof that far-off planets can form in similar ways to those in our celestial backyard. But how common is this throughout the universe remains unclear. So, I mean, the study of exoplanets is in its infancy. We were only just now developing technology like Webb, which enables us to even look into other solar systems with any sort of fidelity, which can give us any hints as to whether or not there might be possible life processes on any of these planets. Getting there would be a significant undertaking, of course, but just getting some sort of hint that there might be life out there in the universe, in other solar systems, is fantastic scientific discoveries, and hopefully there'll be lots more to come.
That's really, really exciting. It's incredible.
I'm glad I live long enough to see it.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we've been dreaming about this since the 70s, haven't we, Robert?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
About in time.
Yeah. Okay. So can we move on to the next segment?
Shout out.
And for the shout outs, first I want to give a special thank you to Constable Birch. And if you think I don't know who you are, we all know who's Birch here. What's up, Angelus? And secondly, I want to also give a special shout out to the FSF podcast. We've been also with them collaboration a couple of episodes in the past. We've been on their show and their beaten hours. They're awesome. Go and check them out. I will tell you to go and find them on X or on Instagram. You just gotta put FSF podcast and you will find them. They're awesome. And last but not least, to rdsellinggrupocarma, who follows us also on Instagram and has been giving us support, engaging on our content, and commenting. Thank you. And that will be all for today's shoutouts.
Awesome. Okay, so I believe that all we have left is
He's losing it. He's losing it, Ray.
He is. He's entirely losing it. So the most recent episode of the Radio Chaos live stream, which was just a day ago, was this one, episode 258. Alita at work. How would Alita joining your team at work change things? Now, you will notice that there's some particularly impressive AI images there of Alita, created by Gemini, which has only just recently in the last few days undergone an upgrade to its generative AI image engine, which, my God, is it good?
Oh, yeah.
And I just happened to pick that time to start generating images of Alita doing things other than beating the crap out of people. So
I like it.
we have Alita being working in a science lab, serving ice cream, giving a PowerPoint presentation about how to defeat the defenses of Xylem, and working blue collar at a work site. So basically what we did, we were talking about our own individual situations with our work and how Alita joining the team at work might change things. And while people were talking, I was there madly creating AI images. There is a significant number of them, so I won't spam them now because we're not here for Alita this episode. We're here for Silent Running. But it was a very interesting podcast. You can check that one out. It was number 258. It will be up as a video now on the Alita Army channel on YouTube. So type in hashtag Alita Army as it is up there in the top of that image, and check out the Alita Army channel. If you've seen the movie Alita Battle Angel and would like a sequel, you are part of the Alita Army. It's a very low bar for entry. And do check out the channel. Do check out well, they're all long format, much like this one. So if you're listening to us here, you shouldn't have too much trouble with the length of the videos over there for the live streams. But that was a particularly fun one. We had a lot of great times creating AI images and stuff like that. And if you like Alita, then you will like that particular YouTube channel.
I got a question for you guys. Out of the 4 Alitas there, can you guess which one is my favorite?
Ice cream.
Thank you.
Did you notice that the AI changed the color tonings on her berserker body to match the ice cream store?
I love that. I want to see Alita on that, on that body.
It's very frilly.
That is Admiral Happy Ending approved.
Oh, very good. It's about the only one she's smiling and not looking creepy. So
yeah. And the funny things about the whole conversation here is watching Gio talk and be muted.
Oh no, we're just talking about where does she pop out the candy canes out of.
Should have left him muted, Robert. Dear.
Oh boy. Yeah, I should have left him mute. Okay, so now I think we're ready for the show.
You're about to hear a very interesting plot.
It is the 1972, yes, I was 2 years old, movie Silent Running. And before we get right into it, do we have the plot?
We do have the plot. Now, just before we get into the plot, let me dig up the Wikipedia page.
The plot. We have the plot.
We have the plot because you pasted the plot into the show notes. 1972, obviously. Only 4 years after 2001: A Space Odyssey, an amazing movie, which I do. I am sad that I wasn't on that episode of Science Fiction Remnant as well, because that was an awesome one. So now, the budget for this movie, don't go look it up. Any guesses?
Oh boy. I didn't.
$4 million.
Well, it was 1972, so I want to echo Gio. Maybe under 10.
Less than what Gio said.
Holy crap!
Yeah.
$250,000.
This is like phone booth levels of budget.
Wow.
Less than $100,000.
No.
I said a quarter. I said a quarter last
It,
number.
it was 1.35 million,
Oh, okay.
which for a sci-fi movie is chump change. That today that would not get you the buffet bar at lunch for a day's worth of filming. I mean,
It will get
it's
you Taco
nothing.
Bell. It would get you Taco Bell.
Maybe. Wouldn't get it delivered. You'd have to go get it. But yeah, that's chump change these days. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So,
I mean,
would you say that they actually did a good job with chump change?
Well, kind of. Look, to give you a comparison, and I'm going to be comparing 2001: A Space Odyssey to Silent Running because they're the same.
How dare you?
I have to. I'm 30. I didn't compare, but I have to. So the budget of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Do you guys remember what that is? Because you covered it already.
I don't know. Yeah, but I sure don't remember.
Didn't stick.
I'm not a budget library.
Okay, have a guess.
Space Odyssey?
Yeah.
10, $12 million.
1968.
Yeah.
20? I'm trying to
Geo is almost exactly on the money. It's
I am
10.5 mil.
I am going by movie qualities today and then thinking of the inflation rate from the date to today.
You did really well, 10.5 mil, which is probably, very low end compared to what you'd spend these days.
Yes, definitely.
But they did a fantastic job. I mean, Kubrick's directing aside, which was phenomenal.
You can give Kubrick an iPhone, 2 stones, and 1/3, and he will make an amazing movie with it. That guy is a magician, bro.
Basically, so it's always hard to go back and recommend old sci-fi movies to modern audiences because we're so used to the Alita Battle Angels and the Marvels and the Star Warses and all the Transformers and just about anything you can name that's been done in the last 10 years looks amazing.
Yes.
I mean, compared, I mean, it's on a different scale because the directing and the writing, those sorts of things haven't changed, but the visuals are always changing. That's one thing that's always ramping up. Now, if you were to do this movie again, like Silent Running, with modern visuals, sure, it would look more visually appealing, but I don't think it would change much.
I was going to say the same thing. You can change the look of it and still be the same.
And if you did 2001: A Space Odyssey again, I don't think it would change much at all. Like it'd be even less of a change because that movie's already amazing, even with the 10.5 million that they spent on it and what they did with that money. It's amazing, and the special effects, while they're not flashy, hold up.
Yeah,
you can still watch it and enjoy it without going, oh. Why am I watching the Minecraft of sci-fi? I do think that to some extent, 2001 really holds up. This one holds up reasonably well in a lot of shots. There are some shots that it doesn't hold up. We'll cover why it doesn't and what they were limited to with what they tried to do. But I mean, a lot of these older movies, they do hold their own. Even like they age well. That's probably what I'm looking to say. They age well. Now, this movie ages reasonably well, but it has its own limitations and its own problems. We'll get into that. It's got a lot to say, but I don't feel like it's peak entertainment. It's not something you sit down and go, "Oh, this is fun," because it's not.
Well, and it's a funny thing you mentioned that because, again, it seems like when I compare this to 2001, 2001 was around the same thing. And if you listen to our episode, which, by the way, is still one of the top downloads episodes that we have on this show, it's one of those that, in my experience, talking to different people, and we're talking about sci-fi fans, right? 50% of the people that I talk to, the response is, "Yeah, that movie was super boring. I can't. I watched 30 minutes of it, and
I have people have told me the same thing about Inception.
and half of the other sci-fi fans that I talked to has told me, "Oh my god, this movie just it was mind blowing." You know,
Yeah.
And I think Silent Running is around the same thing. It's funny that you mentioned it's not entertainment. I'm not saying it's not entertainment, but it's not entertaining.
Hmm.
However, if you are like that we like to think a lot, I think this is a great movie.
I mean, people go and see movies for different reasons. Some people just want to switch their brain off and be entertained with explosions, right?
Mhm.
Which is
Some
fine.
people-
I mean,
and some
that's
people wanna watch
something
hentai.
the movies are for. Yeah.
Yeah.
And, if you want to do that, don't watch this movie. Because it's not that sort of movie.
Yeah.
If you want to go into something that has deep sci-fi roots, is very poignant in 72 and now still, because we could end up going into a future like this, and it would not be good. I'm telling you this right now. Then it will make you think, and it will make you think hard. But it's also got a whole bunch of other levels that we'll get into. But I should probably stop breaking it down and get back into the plot, because
Before you get into
wandered
that,
off.
I was going to ask something. Do you think in
Yeah.
this movie, Back on Earth, it was Soylent Green?
Yes.
I was thinking about this all throughout the movie. There's no other way.
Mm.
They're not, if the only plants are in the domes, what is the synthetic food that they're eating?
Well, I mean, I've got some things to cover on that point,
Their own poop.
which could either fit in the science or fit in just the general discussion. But
Synthesized shit.
yeah,
My boy is Soylent Green.
well, that's one option. But we'll get to that in a minute. We'll do the plot first, so that people
Okay.
are following. Now, if you're in a contemplative mood, stop us now. Go and watch the movie, because I'm about to spoil the shit out of it. All right. It's not a hugely long movie. It's about an hour and a half. But it's got that early 70s slow flow to it. So gives you lots of time to think about what's happening. It's not going to be coming at you at light speed like some other franchises. This is like Star Wars, Star Trek, this stuff. So we're down the continuum a bit further into the slow, thoughtful what's
Star
the hell
stuff.
is going on with our future. Yeah. So right, the plot.
It's like watching asteroids in space. Exactly the same way.
Yeah.
Do, 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 do. In the future, what a shock. All forests on Earth have been extinct from careless environmental exploitation. Like, that could never happen.
That sounds like a person.
Sounds like next week. As many specimens as possible have been preserved in a series of enormous greenhouse-like geodesic domes, serving as closed ecological systems. Geodesic.
That sounds like a scientific way to say my name.
Geodesic. I didn't know your surname was Desic. Well, there you go.
We're going to change his name.
Yeah. It's got to do with the design of the panels, I think, like the way they interlock. Geodesic domes serving as closed ecological systems attached to large cargo ships, forming part of a fleet of 8 American Airlines space freighters stationed outside the orbit of Saturn. I have an issue with that, but we'll get back to that. Freeman Lowell, no, I should pronounce it properly, one of the 4 crewmen, now he's one of the 4 crewmen on the Valley Forge, is a resident botanist and ecologist on one of these ships. I mentioned the Valley Forge. I have a problem with calling him a botanist, but we'll get back to that.
I keep on hearing, really?
Yeah, really? He carefully maintains a variety of plants from their eventual return to Earth and the reforestation of the planet. He spends most of his time in the domes, cultivating the crops and attending to the animal life. Yes, they have full ecosystems held in these domes, which is interesting. The crew of each ship receives orders to jettison and destroy their domes and return the freighters to commercial service. Wonder who decided that stupid move. After 4 of the 6 Valley Forge domes are jettisoned and destroyed with nuclear charges, Lowell rebels and opts to save his ship's plants and animals. Well, his dome. He was only really interested in the one dome. He kills Wolf, one of the crewmates who arrives to plant explosives in his favorite dome, and his right leg is seriously injured in the process. He then jettisons and triggers the destruction of the other remaining dome to trap and kill his remaining 2 crewmen. Such a nice guy. He murderates their asses.
That's what happens when you mess with a vegan's plant.
Isn't this is the Disney version, right?
I don't know. Dirty Harry was nicer than this guy.
This is what happens when you mess up with my arugula.
Dirty Harry gives him a chance. This guy, no chance. Boom.
Yep.
Enlisting in the aid of the ship's 3 service robots, Lau stages a fake premature explosion as a ruse and sends the Valley Forge speeding towards Saturn in an attempt to hijack the ship and flee with the last forest dome. He then reprograms the drones to perform surgery on his leg and sets the Valley Forge on a risky course through Saturn's rings. Later, as the ship endures the rough passage, Drone 3 is lost, but the ship and its remaining dome emerge relatively unscathed on the other side of the rings. Lau gives the surviving drones the name Dewey, Drone 1, and Huey, Drone 2, while the lost Drone 3 is named Louie, a nod to Disney's characters Huey, Dewey, and Louie. Lowell, Huey, and Dewey set out into deep space to maintain the forest. Yeah, good thinking, Buster. Lowell reprograms Huey and Dewey to plant trees and play poker. Obviously, that's what you do.
Hey, they had great poker faces.
They did. But they cheated. Well, gosh, I've got lost now. He also has them bury Andy Wolf in the biodome. Lau begins speaking to them constantly as if they are children. Huey is damaged when Lau accidentally collides with him while driving a buggy recklessly, and Dewey sentimentally refuses to leave Huey's side during the repairs. As time passes, Lau is horrified when he first discovers that his biodome is dying, but then is unable to come up with a solution to the problem.
I was shocked about that, but we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that. When the Berkshire, another space freighter waiting to see if the Valley Forge has survived its trip around Saturn, eventually reestablishes contact, he knows that his crimes will soon be discovered. It is then that Lau realizes that a lack of light has restricted his plant's growth. He then races to install lamps to correct this situation. He installs them in the biodome. In an effort to save the last forest before the Berkshire arrives, Lau jettisons the biodome safely. He then detonates the nuclear charges, destroying the Valley Forge and the damaged Huey and himself in the process. The final scene is of the now well-lit forest greenhouse drifting in deep space, with Dewey tenderly caring for it, holding Lau's battered old watering can. Cue credits.
I love your new name for the movie.
What's that?
Dumb in Space.
Dumb in Space.
Oh, wow.
Maybe they should have called it Stupid Runnings.
No, man. It's a bio dump.
Please don't get
biological.
I do like this movie. It's just, we have our things here.
That sounds like something you would tell to a girlfriend that you're gonna break up with. I do like you, but we have our things. It's not you, it's me.
On a parallel, I'd like to mention that the word cute, the original meaning was ugly but interesting. And that's not how cute is used these days. Much like this movie.
Ugly bit interesting. That sounds like my cute tip when I use it.
Yeah. So using the old version of the word cute, I would call this movie cute. It has some very ugly choices and confusing plot points, but it is really interesting.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So I guess we are at the point of the show where we ask the very first question that we ask on each episode. And that question is, how old were you when you watched this? And what was your very first impression of the film?
Who was the one who saw it first? Was it me in 1976 or was it
No, it was me in 1974.
You weren't even born.
I was in my grandfather's sack, and he was in a porn movies looking at it. So I peeked to the hole.
When was your father born, Gio? What year was your father?
76.
Oh, Jesus.
So yeah, he wasn't even born either, right?
He was in the sack in the sack.
No, I'm sorry. My dad was born in 67.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so he was
67.
around.
Okay.
Yeah.
I cannot remember when I watched this film for the first time. Obviously, it wasn't in the theaters. I was 2 years old.
I was 3, so I get you.
I think it was on TV. I caught this film on obviously on reruns. I want to say late 70s, early 80s.
And when he was watching, they cut to put Barbarella, so he didn't continue the movie.
He never got back to it. During one of the commercial breaks, he was
crazy dude in
surfing.
space. Tits. Crazy dude in space. Tits.
Well, he was channel surfing during the ads and found Barbarella, and that was the end of it.
I remember, and again, this is one of the things that we talked about in this show. And I find really interesting how your perception of the same thing. I mean, obviously that thing has not changed. It was created and is sealed, and that's how it is. Unless you have one of those like remakes, redone, recut, but obviously this film has none of that. It's just as it was when it came out on the theaters in 1972.
No director's cut,
Nothing.
Variations.
So I remember back when I saw this for the first time. I guess since I already liked 2001, I found that fascinating. My love for sci-fi, the visuals at the time. We kind of talked about this slightly in the pre-show. The robots. I'm all for robots back, when I watched this earlier.
Did you two wonder how they did for the robots props?
For like how they,
like if it was a little person inside, or if it was an actual person, it was crouched moving in it. Like it makes me wonder, or if it was an actual robot, like mechatronic that they had that moved around.
To be honest with you, I haven't researched it, but it seems to me.
No, I'm asking like, what do you think? I don't think that none of us have researched, or we're gonna have much success finding a lot of detail.
I don't think that it's too small to be a little person in there. I think it was kind of around it. I'm sorry?
In 1972 film Silent Running, the robots Huey, Dewey, and Louie were brought to life by 4 multiple amputee actors who used their hands as the robot's feet, achieving a distinctive waddling gait through pantomime.
Wow. That really surprises me. Because they're so tiny.
And the actors' names were Mark Pearson, Stephen Brown, Cheryl Sparks, and Larry Wisenhunt.
So there's your answer.
So all these actors had lost their legs, so they didn't need to take up space with their legs, and their bodies were in the robots, and they were using their hands to move the legs.
Wow. So to go back to my answer, I found it really fascinating for the visuals, right? And it's interesting. I think I was around 10 years old, so that would explain, right? I love how like the idea of the domes in space, and it had a wow factor for me, being able to see like greenery and not like lakes. I don't know how you would call that, ponds, and animals, and then have that background of the stars and the robot and the spaceship and all that stuff just grabbed me. I don't think I was. I don't know. I was yes and no into the story. Again, I was 10 years old. I'm trying to go back and reminisce as to like my first feelings when I watched this, and all I can remember is that I was in it for the visuals as a 10-year-old kid. It was really fascinating, and
Oh yeah.
I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." And we'll get into it, but the reason why I mentioned that earlier is because and other rewatch of this film, it's interesting how my perspective has changed completely. So who wants to go next? And the question again for our listeners.
I think I should be next.
Yeah, the question for our listeners is, when was the first time you watched this film, and what was your very first impression of the film?
So I believe I was 7, and it was 1976, and I saw this on TV on a Saturday afternoon. I clearly remember being wowed by the ships with the domes on them. I thought that was amazing. Much like Robert, I was in it for the little robots, and the fact that they had domes on ships with different biomes in them. I thought that was pretty amazing. And then they were blowing them up, and I was very sad. I was a sad panda.
Me too.
But I really didn't understand exactly what was going on. I knew that it was something desperate, and
Didn't you feel that?
fighting.
Didn't you feel when the third one was gone from the roof? Wilson! No!
Well, the Wilson thing wasn't actually a thing yet because it was 1976. But you can't compare a meme. Cool. You can't compare a meme that hasn't been created yet when you're 7 years old. But looking at it from back in that day, I'd seen a bit of original Star Trek reruns like on Saturday afternoons, and this was before Star Wars. So Star Wars wasn't even a thing yet. So this was sort of the epitome of 60s, 70s sci-fi before Star Wars. Star Wars was this turning point. It went from social issues and vaguely scientific presentation to like sports day, carnival kind of sci-fi, which was the Star Wars aesthetic, the adventure sci-fi versus the sort of deep thinking sci-fi. So certainly this movie, Silent Running, is in deep thinking sci-fi category. And as a 7-year-old, how much deep thinking was on? A lot. So the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, cool spaceships. Oh, cool buggies that they're driving around. Oh, cool that they've got domes with forests in them. Why are they blowing them up? Why did the robot get hurt? It's like 7-year-old me was like in tears. It's like, oh, because it had a lot of sad moments which I didn't understand.
Like him holding the robot's feet.
Yeah,
it was funny to see him trying to humanize them.
I mean, there's a whole lot of levels of this that I just didn't get at 7. And then, of course, I saw it a couple of times in the 80s, a couple of times in the 90s. Not necessarily watching the whole thing. You'd like turn onto it late at night and go, oh, I remember this movie. What's it called? Oh, yeah, Silent Running. Yeah, I saw this way back in the 70s. I didn't understand it then. and then I'd watch a bit more of it, and it wouldn't necessarily grab me, and I maybe wouldn't watch it all the way through to the end because it was a bit sad at the end. And then fast forward a number of decades. Yes, that's scary when you think about it. To watching it for this show. And I have to admit now that my appreciation of sci-fi has gone through the roof compared to how it was before I started working on this podcast. And I will have to thank you two guys for bringing me on board, because my appreciation for sci-fi now is completely different to how I used to watch it. Now I watch it and analyze it, and for story and science and themes, and it gives me a whole new appreciation of sci-fi. And when we go back to these, classics back in the 70s, I look at it with a whole new fresh set of eyes and get a new experience. And so the experience of this one through my life has changed just about every time, because I've matured and I can think on multiple levels and think differently now. So it really has, developed to the point of a fine wine, because now I can see a whole lot more into it. And we've got plenty to talk around in this one because it's got many different levels.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess Gio is next.
Yeah.
When did you watch this for the first time?
Today, my friend. Today.
Oh, so he's the newbie.
And it was an interesting experience, to say the least.
Before you say your thoughts, right? This movie made me nervous.
It made me nervous too, for the same reason.
I know about this movie. I seen this movie. I know. And I was thinking, oh my God, our very own Captain Chaos, he's gonna hate this.
What do you mean? Almost everybody dies practically. I love it.
Because it's did, but it made me nervous. So hearing your thoughts on this made me so happy, because I was like, okay, great. He really
that is sci-fi love. When three guys agree that they're happy that somebody's suicidal in space because they were cuckoo.
He's right, the only dude who survives is Radio Guy from the Berkshire.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the only one who survives.
Poor guy.
And I reckon that they're going, Valley Forge, hello, Valley Forge. What the fuck happened? Where is everybody?
Do you remember that this short movie that we recorded from Amazon? That it was a girl and a guy, and they were like trapped in like interdimensional space, and she went to take a shit, and then he died of age.
Oh my God! What
She said like I'm going to the bathroom, and when she came back, 50 years passed already, so he was dead when she got there.
What movie is
it? It was a short movie that we recorded recently, man, from Amazon, a short film.
Recently?
Oh my God!
Oh, was that?
You know what I'm talking about?
Is that the one that with the woman trapped in the escape pod?
Yes. That's what she finally gets to the planet in a cave, and she says the message. I think that guy is the guy Berkshire in the interlude of the 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Because he's always there, and like the funny thing is the way that he talks. Like the way that Control Berkshire, I call it Control. The way that Control talks, he doesn't talk like Control. He sounds like your buddy that is worried about you, instead of a militarized procedure where if you don't follow through, we're gonna blow you up because you're a risk. So that was kind of odd, and it makes sense that Ray mentioned while we were doing the rewatch, like, oh, people were more tolerant before. But besides that, I mean, it was an interesting movie because. I agree with Ray. Like, being able to have an analytical mind allows you to enjoy things that will pass you by, and even allows you to see through the lines of the plot. Sometimes if you just all for the FX and the visuals, and you don't care for the content, like why you even bothering with the movie? Because that's like watching random stuff. And when you look at this, the funny thing is the director did such a great job that like you find yourself understanding this crazy guy. Like we mentioned that he shows some kind of like autism, but I will go as far as to say that the guy shows actually signs of some kind of schizophrenia.
Hmm.
Not just psychopathy or sociopathy, but more schizophrenic behavior, because it's like he's lost the touch with reality, when you look at him. And on top of that, the other crew members are like a whole opposite pole that make him look like a crazy guy, or even push him to that limit, you know.
Yeah.
Also, it reminds me when I was watching the movie, this thing of like going in the little carts and doing like tag and racing. That was something like very common in the 70s, because I even used to watch kids shows where the host will be racing around golf carts and stuff at the intro and the outro there. And it was like, I'm talking about 1970s kids shows. Like, just to mention one, the banana splits.
Oh, the banana splits.
Yeah, when I saw the guys racing on the cars, I thought the banana splits right away. I was like, this looks like a banana splits scene. It's like big bulky go karts just racing around. So it gave me like that refreshing view. But psychologically, I think that this movie is reaching a lot of things, and I think that even though the plot looks like a Swiss cheese, I I think that the crazy thing about the movie, it's not where it drives the plot, it's all the questions and concepts that it brings up.
Yes.
I will even go as far as to say that even if this movie was a flop and it didn't become a sleeper, it became inspiration for a lot of sci-fi concepts that were used later on in one way or another in many series of movies that we have watched that came out later on.
Well,
Well,
don't get me wrong,
apparently,
this is
R2D2 was
Inspired?
inspired from the robots in this movie.
I
this
wouldn't pass it.
this is an iconic film,
Mhm.
and that's the reason why I wanted to cover it. It is definitely an iconic film.
And the set look amazing.
Yeah.
Even if I think that also how pristine and well made the set was helped out to the quality of the visuals on the movie to give it more chic. Like when you look in things like when I remember looking at Battlestar Galactica or something like that it has a space setup, it doesn't look as spacious and as big. Like all the spaces that you see usually in Battlestar Galactica, you have the hangar where you have the ships. That's the only big space I remember seeing. Then everything else is like little rooms. Like if you're if you're watching Star Trek, you know. But in here, like you have that sense of like large space, kind of like what you feel when you're looking at Event Horizon at the
Mhm.
ship, the massive amount, like the sheer dimension of it, which makes it realistic for you to think that there are several domes on it.
Yeah.
Well, that's my first impression. I think that the movie was very innovative for the time. I would dare to say that. I think that it inspired people, and I wouldn't say it's a movie that I totally get that you will pass it by the cable and stop by it. I probably will watch it. Would I watch it once? And I probably will stop on TV if I see it again, just for like that. Like, oh, this movie.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, it's that's the one thing this movie and I have to echo what you said there. Is the one thing that I really love about this film is the thoughts, how thought provoking, in some of the concepts that it brings up front, and just like 2001 is slow paced, is very very slow paced. Um, so I guess I want to move us on to a question that we alluded to at the beginning of the show, and is the food. Let's get into this universe for a moment. What do you guys think? Because when I was watching this, I'm thinking corporations were the ones, and it was kind of implied. It wasn't, they wanted to return the freighters to circulation, to commercial circulation. So they didn't want this experiment. I'm assuming it was already costing a lot of money. They didn't want to deal with that, so jettison it, explored it, uh, blow it up, right, and come home. We need the ships for commercial use. Um, so it's obvious that Lowell was on its own. And I venture to say maybe one within the entire, versus the entire planet that was considering food, like, I want to say organic food, to be a good thing when everybody on the planet wasn't even, for obvious reasons, based on what I see in the film, it wasn't even considered. It's like too hard. Everybody's used to the other stuff. So, what do you think that other stuff was? Assuming that the
I know what you think it was.
Soylent Green. Soylent Green.
You think it was this?
I just wanted to get an excuse to link two movies together, two iconic sci-fi movies together. But yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind. It's like they're eating people.
Well, I mean, it looked like, I mean, they set it up. They absolutely set it up in that scene where he brought the food in from the dome that he'd been growing, and he's cutting it and so forth and so on. And they're getting their meals from the, I hazard to call it a replicator, but it's something akin to a replicator from Star Trek. And they were eating that, and they looked over and said, "Hey, give us a bit of that." And he says, "I'm not wasting this on your palates. You wouldn't appreciate it." He was against them from the beginning. He despised his crewmates. I mean, they had no thought for him. They were driving over his veggie garden, and then didn't give a crap. They had a bunch of other domes they could have driven through. No, they drove through his to piss him off. They did that deliberately. So these weren't nice people, and he was stuck in space with them. And obviously, being in an environment like that for multiple years with the same people, animosities build up, grudges, all that sort of thing. So this movie has a lot of psychological layers in what's happening between the crew and what's happening with Lowell himself. And of course, I agree with Gio in his sort of armchair psychological assessment of Lowell. In that there was something not right up there.
Yeah, I don't think that's what I said. He could have some kind of a spectrum of autism, but he showed schizophrenic behavior for sure. I wouldn't even say it was psychopathic or sociopathic, because and I will say that there's a psychopathy in there too, because of how well premeditated he fabricated the situation for control, to think that everything was an accident and not catch him. So there was some psychopathy there, but like him imagining the whole thing. And I would also say that the other crew members were contributors to that. They kind of push him over the edge with their stupid behavior, And the problem with having crew members stuck with each other in space, and the psychological drainage that brings, is not having somebody in charge of that department. And it doesn't seem like there was anybody that took care of psychological health of the crew members. So if you think about it, you put 4 or 5 guys, and there's only one that doesn't get along with the group. It's just a time bomb.
Yeah.
Something is going to happen.
That leads me to a question when I was watching this over here, is the fact that it is obvious this is not norm in the planet, right? It seems to me this was just an experiment because of the amount of domes they had to send out to space, which they didn't seem to be important. And this was displayed on the behavior of the other people and how they drove over. If it was something important, they're not going to drive over it. So this leads me to believe that the common conception on Earth is that this was, a lost cause. So the question that I ask, that I asked myself when I was watching this, is when Lowell's exposure to these started, because it's not norm. This was something that was created to try to come up with something. So he was exposed to this at some point. I like to think that he wasn't like this when he was born. He grew up. He probably grew up eating the same food. At some point, he ate for the first time the fruit and vegetables that are grown in this garden. And I like to guess that this was later on in life, not early. So because of this, I think that separated him, because it's obvious to me in my mind, and please correct me if you get a bit different perspective on this, that he was the only person on the planet that felt this way. Based on what I seen, obviously that's an oversimplification, right? Because there's, we don't see planet Earth, right?
Yeah, no, we never even see what's the state of it. Like, we don't know if he's going back to planet Earth, if we're actually living in Mars and planet Earth is abandoned. We don't even know that throughout the movie.
Well, no, they talk about Earth. Earth still exists, but everything
it's abandoned.
is. Well, no, it's not abandoned. It's paved over.
Yeah,
like all the planet is like one giant city. I think
it's like a Death Star. Was this a planet in Star Wars that is just city?
Coruscant.
What? Coruscant.
Yeah, like Coruscant. Yeah.
So I will guess that that's what they did with Earth. They made it.
Yeah,
Coruscant.
I mean, maybe not the entire Earth, but there's cities and there's wasteland, because they've basically trashed the whole place. Now, I'm just well, I realized I was looking down, not looking at the camera, because I was looking through this.
Oh, right.
I think this came out in the late 70s. This is the Encyclopedia
of Science Fiction. Nice.
This is an ancient book. I remember reading this in sixth grade. It was a new addition to the library at my what you'd call elementary school. We call public school over here. And I remember reading through this, and this has a section on silent running in it. Because this is published art. This has got Star Wars in it as well, so it's post 77. But this particular book, now this book comes from a public library in Western Sydney. It's not the original one that I read back in my hometown of Albury. But
does it smell musky? Come on.
Oh, it does smell musky. Trust me on that. This has been sitting in a library for like 4 decades, and then they sold it off, and I found it, and I was really happy to find this book. It sits up in my shelf behind me there, but I just grabbed it down because I wanted to look up the section on silent running. Now, it's not mentioned on the Wikipedia page. It's not mentioned in the movie, but it is mentioned in here because I have reference material that you don't have. But what year do you think silent running is set in?
Oh boy, that is a very good question, because that's not even mentioned, and I don't think there's any clues. I don't even know.
Now keep in mind that silent running was done in the early 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So remember how like movies from that era have already come to pass in our timeline and not turned out that way. Like the second Back to the Future movie was set in 2015, so that was 10 years ago now.
Wow.
And we got the sneakers.
And we got the sneakers, and that's all we got.
That's
Unfortunately,
and the
hoverboards and the flying cars. Well, not proper hoverboards.
Well,
they call them.
Yeah.
Now, remember that Blade Runner was set in 2020 or 2019. I think it was 2019.
Yeah, around
2049 coming soon for Ray.
Yeah.
That's gonna be his year.
So and there's a bunch of other ones. Like 1997.
Well, now, how far from the mark was? I said year 2000, the millennium. That's what it was set up on.
Well, Robert, what's your guess?
1984, like the book.
Gio, you are on the money today. 2001. Oh, wow. It was set in the same year as 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Wow.
When you look at movies before, the end of the world, like the future, was the millennium.
Yep.
Like if you look at movies and everything, and we look at us on the 70s and 50s thinking about the future, we could, like, society didn't project beyond 2000. 2000.
Yeah, 2000 was the big milestone, and
Yeah, we
everybody
don't,
was
like,
like,
I think the society look at year 2000 like, oh, we'll see when we get there. Like something big is gonna happen. For some
Yeah.
reason, collectively as a society, and if you any of you guys know why, please come and tell me because I sometimes I don't know how we humans operate. But for some reason, globally, collectively, some shit that we are having impossibility to do, collectively agree on something, but we all thought that by year 2000, something big was going to happen in the world, things were going to change. So if you look at IPs from 40, 50 years before that, they all project that year 2000 is the future.
so 2001: A Space Odyssey. This one, yeah, it's around the millennium is where everybody thought, oh, I'll pitch my sci-fi story there. That's a long way off,
Yep.
and then now it is a long way
Millennium
off
was the future.
in the past. so yeah. So whenever you look at one of these properties, you do need to sort of look at it from a lens of, yeah, these people were doing this, 30 years before the millennium, and that's why they looked at that as being the turning point, the pivotal point of sci-fi. And now it's ancient history. It's a quarter of a century ago. So that's like,
Yep. Now we're working on going to Mars and having Artemis crew in the moon.
Yeah.
So I mean,
We're gonna have
they were expecting a fair bit more than we actually achieved in this movie. Yeah. So no mention of setting in either the wiki or the movie itself, like the time period. But yeah, 2001.
Nice.
I don't know. If today we were on the money, I would be rich. But I'm just a lucky.
I think maybe you need a lottery ticket.
There you go.
I don't believe in that, bro.
Today for it.
So you guys are telling me it's not Soylent Green that they're eating?
Well, it could be Soylent Green. It could be like
Well, a dead body will become that eventually.
some sort of microorganism. Maybe algae.
You know, you have a point because I've been reading this series of manga that is coming in as an anime soon. They're announcing it. It's called Reborn as a Space Mercenary.
Ah, yes.
And I don't know if you read the manga, if you're familiar with the story.
The guy has a replicator and he got a flashlight out of it, and it looks real.
So basically, what it is, there's this device where they use cartridges, and these cartridges, basically what you just said, Ray. And then you would actually tell the machine, okay, I want a burger with fries, and it will like kind of replicate. It's kind of like a 3D printer using this cartridge full of. So basically, all you do when you go to the store is you buy cartridges of this thing. I forgot what is actually filled in, but I think you what was it that you said, Ray? You just mentioned in
Algae.
I think it was some sort of algae, and it's
Was it phytoplankton or cyanobacteria?
I couldn't tell you, but basically, when you go to the stores, you stock up on those cartridges. They have no flavor, and then you put, and then basically, depending on the machine, if you spend a lot of money and get like a real good machine, you get like gourmet meals that taste really good. And if you get like, because even within the book, when he went to the store to buy a new machine, this is when I realized that the cost of the machine influences the taste, because he was having a burger in his spaceship and it tasted all right. But when he tasted the one from the store, he was like, oh, he bought it on the spot. It was like the greatest burger he had. And he's all from the same. So he was asking the salesperson, how is that even possible? Because I'm using the same cartridges, it's just a different machine. So yeah, when I was watching that, that's another thing that came to mind is like, a machine like that.
Well, I just did a quick read, like for the idea of how to fuel a replicator, and Google gave me this, which makes sense. That's what I was thinking more or less. But in Star Trek, for example, the Federation utilized free stock of recycled materials and energy, including waste products, to create matter and technology that allows creation of a wide variety of substances. Which makes sense. Like in my head before that, what I was thinking is A replicator kind of is like a molecular manipulator. So basically, it can grab something and manipulate it molecularly to convert it to something else, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like the guy on Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs. That's what the machine does, right?
Hmm.
And if you think about it, before that, I was thinking you could put even little packets of jelly silicate, which is what the universe is. Oh, everything is made of silicate, particles, and then just like refill it with that.
No, the universe is not made of silica. Silica,
most of the things,
silica is
most of the
one
things.
atom of the many atoms in the periodic table, so it's not the whole universe. But the whole thing is, we grow food because we don't have the technology to create it from atoms and molecules. But if we did have the technology to create it from atoms and molecules, it would save us a lot of time and effort in growing food. Now, would it be as good for us? Who knows? Maybe it would, maybe it wouldn't. If you break food down into its basic constituents, you break down to certain types of molecules, be it proteins, carbohydrates, those sorts of things, which we all need. Now, there's an issue of bioavailability. So you can have, like, we all need calcium for our bones, right? It's part of the structure of our bones. Calcium is not necessarily bioavailable unless you have magnesium with it, because it's a co-absorbing molecule. So the two of them have to be connected together for the body to absorb it. So you can have the calcium, but unless you have the magnesium, you can't absorb it. So there's all these little if, but, when situations with nutrients that are covered in normal food. But if you were trying to break it down to its basics and just feed somebody a food pill like they do in that TV show from the 70s, it was the one about the space garbage contractors. I'm trying to remember the name of it. Sorry?
Space truckers?
No.
Space
The movie was a series.
Oh.
It was a British thing, I think.
A British series?
Yeah.
Not Doctor Who.
That wasn't.
What's wrong with Doctor Who? I love Doctor Who.
I'm getting space debris.
Just to clarify, I was under the understanding that silicate particles were virtually in most of the physical things on the universe. Like they were even us in our body, they're particles of it.
Human beings' bodies aren't able to process silica. So if we get any silica in us, we can't get it out again.
So maybe I mentioned the wrong. It's a wrong term. Maybe it's instead of silica, it's just carbon molecules.
Oh, carbon. Right? Carbon is.
Because there's carbon molecules in everything physical in the universe, right?
Well, no, we're a carbon-based life form.
Yeah.
All the life that we understand on Earth is based on carbon chains. So if you're looking for a carbon source, life is a carbon source. And we eat other life forms, be they plants or animals, to get carbon chain molecules such as proteins, and also carbohydrates are carbon chains. So it's all basically carbon, carbon, carbon. Now, it's been postulated that you could possibly have silicate-based life forms, but the temperature ranges and pressures and things that they'd have to work under are completely different from us.
Interesting.
So,
but silicate for us, silicate is not considered an organic material then.
No.
Wasn't
that the plot behind evolution? How the aliens that came in, and that's what they were using. Is it shampoo or conditioner to?
Yes.
Yeah, never put head and shoulder up your ass.
that was the very loose scientific justification for using Head and Shoulders to kill a giant animal.
That is very scientific.
Yeah, it was. amazingly scientific-y, and I will use that term here because that's about as close to science as it got. But no, the show I was trying to remember was from 1977. Fantastic era of Star Wars. Quark. The show's called Quark. Have you seen it?
Never. No.
No.
It's actually an American sitcom, sci-fi sitcom.
I'm gonna have to look it up.
Yeah, you will. It's a classic. I saw it along with Doctor Who and Goodies and those sorts of shows. So that's why I thought it was British, but it's actually American. And in that show, they had these pills delivered to them, which was an entire meal in a pill. Now, why I was
Quark.
Yep, Quark. Yes.
1977.
Yep, galactic garbage disposal.
Oh wow.
I think that Robert might have watched this for sure. Yeah.
It doesn't ring a bell. I'm gonna have to look it up.
It sounds something like a family show, a sci-fi family show. It looks like for the.
Oh, I don't know. It was pretty risque.
Oh.
There was a pair of twins that were all over the captain.
Yeah, I see. Okay, no, never mind. No, I don't think I was watching that at the time.
It depends on what kind of family. Let's say that.
Yeah,
Making
I
families not being
mean, if you were kind of like a mamas and the papas family, yeah, you will see this kind of stuff.
Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't ring a bell.
No,
I'm gonna have to look it up. And follow.
so the guy with the curly hair down on the right, his name's Ficus, and he's a plant.
He looks
A plant.
He looks like Doctor Who from
A little bit.
from the 70s.
Oh, it's the same hair. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this guy looks like Mr. Bean's father. and these chicks looks like the twin sisters from the Austin Powers blonde girl.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to look it up. I never heard of this, but it sounds interesting.
Anyway, Quark.
Those two blondes are actually sisters.
They look great, bro.
Yeah, they're supposed to be. One is supposed to be a clone of the other, but they can never work out which one was the clone and which was the original.
But they look different. Oh boy.
But anyway,
so
so the whole thing about food, going back to the point, we wandered very far away from the point. But the point is that if we could work out how flavor and texture is related to how the molecules go together in the food, which obviously a replicator in Star Trek can, and recreate it in the fashion that creates the best flavor and texture experience, then theoretically you could turn anything into food. Anything that was carbon based, you could massage the molecules and fit them together and create food, because that's basically what the plants and the animals, and then the people who process the plants and animals, and then the chefs are doing. But they're doing it in a more natural way to create the food. But if you can create a machine that can turn out the same product at the end from different ingredients like phytoplankton, then you could have a machine that makes perfectly serviceable food out of stuff that's not food.
That brings another question, because if you are a fan of Star Trek, you realize that the major conversation that happens around the taste on the replicator is that it can never be as good as real food. So why I'm bringing this up is I have to wonder if something like what you mentioned, Ray, comes to pass, would it be enough of a difference? Would people taste the food and it be the same, or would it be some sort of difference in the flavor? And that's always a question that comes to things.
It all comes down to your personal experience. If you've never been to a 5-star Michelin restaurant and tasted the food there, how would you know?
Yeah.
If you've grown up on this stuff and you've known nothing else, you don't know that there's anything better. And that is what I think was the whole point of what was happening in this movie, was that they just decided it was too hard to reforest the earth. It was too hard to bring all the natural stuff back. Bugger it, we'll just use the machines and live with it.
So you would think it was an issue of, there's already a generation or two already eating processed food, and no one has the experience of eating, like, quote,
except for Lowell. He's the only one.
the question. I mean, that is the question. I wonder, because he comes from the same planet. So why is he different than the rest of the people? And that's something that the movie doesn't answer.
No.
I
I
mean,
mean, it's all about corporate greed and expediency and well, what makes the most efficiency and the most financial sense. I mean, presuming that in 2001 in this universe, they still have the 1%, which want the best of everything, there would still be people there demanding fresh fruit and vegetables and food that's made to the highest standards, that the machines wouldn't be good enough to create if they still had the same problems that replicators do. So, I mean, this isn't a far-flung future. This is a future from 24 years ago. So, I mean, technology came a long way in those 30 years from, the space shuttle hadn't even happened. They'd only just landed on the moon a few times when this movie was made. And they were expecting by the year 2001 to have space freighters carrying geodesic domes full of biomes, which is pretty freaking impressive even to us at this stage in our timeline, where we're still trying to get the Starship to work properly. So
yeah.
It was a lot of expectation in the early 70s to what would happen by the year 2000.
Now, I would have to say that if the race, let's call quote unquote space race, would it continue at the same pace that it was at the time of the Apollo missions, I wouldn't be surprised if the future would have been something like what we see in this film.
I think it would have broken the budget of both the USSR and the US, actually, because they spent a lot of money in the 60s to get men on the moon. That was an incredible amount of money for the time.
Yeah.
I mean, they cut NASA's budget back by about 80% after the Apollo missions. They really cut into it. I mean, NASA's budget now is apparently 0.5% of the national military budget for the USA.
It's insane.
That's what I was reading the other day.
I mean, if you look, if you could imagine, and not just NASA, right? In sciences, any science, if you had budget enough to support the research, you imagine what we'd. I mean, because we talked about in previous episodes how some of the technologies that we talked about are depending on other technologies. Like to me, for example, and I think I'll die in the hill.
You will.
Space travel is solely dependent, or our understanding and manipulation of gravity, and how we can create some sort of machine that can manipulate space travel, anything that has to do with so those are technologies that are needed for us to be able to see the sci-fi future of reality. They are dependent on other stuff, and scientific research suffers. I have heard of some scientific research they had to stop because they don't have the funding or the budget for it.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
And it's really sad because that scientific progress is how humanity move forward. And it's being looked up as I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm wrong in this thought, but I think we as a humanity as a whole would have been in a complete different scale if we had enough budget to support our scientific research.
Well, as a
Honest-
scientist, as a trained scientist who has worked in research, you are completely 100% correct. More money that's pumped into science, the more we move towards future technologies, the faster social welfare, quality of life, and opportunities improve. It's been basically stated that all the money that was pumped into science through both world wars, when we came out the other side and everything was put back together, we were so much better off because of the research funding that had been available during those conflicts. It wasn't the conflict that made things better. It was the research that was done during the conflict to try and win.
Yeah.
There's been major upgrades in technology and sciences during major conflicts.
That's one of the things that I find so sad about. I mean, you look at the budget of anything else and compare it to a military budget. And it's just and the times
sad. You gotta look at my budgets, buddy. If you want to see sad, this is sad. This budget.
Gio's showing us his empty pockets.
Yet you look at eras where the science research and military comebacks, is that the right word? And then those are the times when we have advancements in technology. Yet whenever it's not needed anymore, it will go back to military spending.
Yeah. And military spend is one of the greatest wastes of all time, which is a shame, but it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
How crazy it is that we never stop going to war and we go to war to stop going to war. That's humans for you, buddy.
Humans.
We got a war. We got a war to stop war. We have not stopped doing war since like the First World War. There's always some other country shooting some other country. We still have it going on. It's crazy. It's 2025. But in exchange, when you look at humanity, like to me, like in my opinion, like the race to the moon, it was a shame that because we made it to the moon, then the others stopped trying. Keep on doing it. Like that kind of war, I like it because we're not trying to kill each other. We're trying all separately to advance on technology. And unknowingly, we become collective when we do that. Because instead of trying to kill each other, we're working together towards something, even if we are you're in your country and me and mine, you know?
The reason that the USSR didn't get to the moon was that their moon rocket didn't work. It kept blowing up.
But it feels like the moment that Apollo made it, they just stopped trying. You know, that's what it feels like when you look at.
It was the first of the moon. It was the two things. It was we can't be first anymore, and we've pumped a whole lot of money into this giant space rocket to get to the moon, and it keeps blowing up, and we just gave up.
It looks like everybody saw it like a race, not like what it really is. Like there's so much to be discovered and to be known of the moon that can tell us more about ourselves. You know. So it's like they made it all about the race and they forgot why they were doing it, which is for humanity.
Humanity comes a very sad last in most of these things.
Oh, we have a knack for shooting ourselves in the foot when we're trying to do well.
Cannot argue. I have nothing to argue against that.
So to go back to the film, the reason why I was mentioning this and we got derailed
back to the dome,
the show. The question as to why is Lowell the way that he is and how he started, because it's not the planet. He grew up together with everybody else in the planet, so that is what leads him to be isolated, not only from the rest of the people that sees him as an outsider because he doesn't think or act like the other ones, but also in his attempt to try to save this habitat from destruction.
Well, if you think about when the movie was made and when the movie was set in 2001. Now, Lowell looked like he was in his maybe mid-30s, somewhere around there, approaching 40 perhaps. Bit hard to say how aged you would look. Give the man a hand. It's hard to say exactly how you would age if you spend a lot of time in space. You might look older than you actually are, but I would peg him around 35 to 40. So if he was in 2001 at 35 to 40, he would have been born somewhere around the late 60s. He'd basically be the same age as Robert and I in 2001, as we were in 2001. So he would have experienced in his life real food because there was still real food in the early 70s. It's not said when the environmental destruction happened and when things were switched over to this artificial food that they were eating, but one presumes it was sometime in the 80s that all this happened. So he would have, at least in his younger years, and everyone there, at least in their young years, would have had some real food. Now, the fact that they forgot what it tasted like or weren't interested in it anymore was kind of weird because it wasn't generations. It was a fairly short period of time.
Mhm.
Well, I think
so. The logic of the whole, oh yeah, we don't need this stuff anymore. We can just eat this artificial crap. Just, it's another one of those bugbears of would people's thinking change that quickly?
It makes you wonder with commercials and media.
Well, I don't know if you guys noticed, there's a big commercial to this movie right at the beginning for industry, an airline that I'm not going to mention because they don't pay us. But there was a big commercial that it's the first thing I saw in the movie. I was like, holy shit, like these guys, this movie belongs to this company.
Product placement.
Yeah,
but then with the question of Robert, I actually thought of this. They don't really give you much about what's normal on Earth. For all we know, there's not the real deal on Earth neither. They grew up eating the synthetic shit, you know. But the thing is, they don't give us any background on how he entered the crew, how it all started. You just get these two polarized groups: one guy and the assholes, you know. And when you think about it, it doesn't seem like for recruitment before organizations or companies or institutes will be so thorough as to do psychological assessments and stuff like this on the individuals. That was not very common in the 50s or 60s. On the contrary, I think that psychology was starting to become something more than experimental new science from the 1900s on the 50s, right? So when you think of that, it's not like they made sure that they're gonna get along the whole trip. They just saw that they didn't fight or that they get along, but you can do that with all your coworkers on a daily basis, you know. So they took that, but then these guys are stuck with each other. So you can see how it can become detrimental, and it can go worsening because these guys are not trying to understand Lowell, and Lowell is eccentric, and I think that eccentric just got worse over time.
I was thinking that even if there was nothing bad or detrimental at the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
because of the situation, I think it could have driven him to be what he was at the end of the film. Because, and that's why I was trying to determine when did this started, because just him discovering how, let's put it this way, he just discovered that real food is that important, right? Important enough to save, even if you have to give up your own life. That by itself would alienate you from the rest of the world.
Maybe even feels different on the body, Robert, because you're giving your body in reality something it's not used to. Because even you can make a cantaloupe on a replicator, I don't think that is ever gonna be the same as a cantaloupe grown on a tree.
Well,
right?
that's the thing we don't know, right? But I was thinking about this.
I'm not talking about flavor. I'm talking about its effects on the body as it gets ingested. Okay. So Lowell could have felt a different symptom from, oh, this is real food and it feels so much better too.
Because
would
Ray talked about this in previous episodes and how a human body gets used to something so fast, and after sometime, assuming that this is generational, right? Because we could, based on what Ray said, this could happen all within the same generation. But let's assume for a minute that this was generational, that
Yeah.
everybody has been eating this crap food forever, and now he discovered real food for the first time. The body was already conditioned to eat that type of food, and all of a sudden it's eating real food. We don't know what kind of effects will that be on the body.
Yeah, we don't, But that's the thing. It could be a bad effect. It could be a good effect. It could be like, let's put it like, it could be like you being feeding unleaded gasoline to a very good engine, and you put really good gasoline on the engine. It could work a lot better, or it could break because it's used to the bad shit.
So, Ray, you were gonna say something. I can see it.
Oh, I got a ton of stuff to add.
Well, just to finish, so Ray can give me his opinion on that. But I also think that your food choices will determine, like, will alter your behavior
Well, it changes your
to a
character.
point. Yeah, so to a point, like, just like, for example, somebody in testosterone becomes highly aggressive, or and so and such. Like, food, I think that at some point it does affect your mind. Even though you're always in control, it's a chemical imbalance always. You can go, Ray. Sorry.
I have so many warring opinions on what you've just said. Like, even in myself, I can't decide which one's right. I can throw up some really curly stuff here, which is
glad
basically.
I put a fork on your brain.
First of all, I wanted to say, Gio, on your point about psychoanalysis of participants in space programs, the Apollo mission underwent rigorous psychological evaluations of their astronauts, including tests like the Rorschach import test and the Minnesota multiphasic personality inventory. And assessments of their suitability for demanding environment of space travel. So they had psychiatric examinations, military aptitude exams, stress tests, and they were really focused on emotional and psychological health during the Apollo missions. So it was a thing already in the late 60s.
But you think that it was as rigorous and as intricate and effective? Because I think that we all could agree that back then you still recently have people lobotomized, and that was science or medicine, So thinking about that and thinking that psychology really is a baby science. I don't think that psychology has more than 120 years established as something, and it still is something. It's something very, very malleable. Like, you're not gonna get the same diagnosed, even giving the same symptoms to 10 different doctors. So that's why you had to find yours, so you can get your road to betterment.
Still happens
so
today.
I would think,
doctors are very opinionated.
Exactly. So what you're explaining to me sounds more like what I saw on Ad Astra. And I don't think that something so rigorous would allow a loony like this or three assholes like that to escape the system to become that. Because in Ad Astra, for example,
100%.
My argument is the fact that I don't think he was lunatic when he started.
Yeah, but when you're putting a team together, I mean, I would think, like, there's a lot of money going on in here, and these motherfuckers were blowing up domes just because we don't need them. So there's a lot of money going on here. So just like when we saw this movie with Softborn, what's the name?
Was that the Russian one?
Yeah, Stoya. You guys can look it up. Well, in that movie, for example, they put so much stress on the importance of the psychological stability of the individuals. And so much that even if it was a robot, but they assessed them perfectly, so she could be a fit for him. I would think that space crews, it would be the same, because they don't have anybody else. They stuck with each other. Like, the only way that I could think this possibly could go south and happen, and you could, like, say, like, yeah, this could happen. And Ad Astra itself, what happens to Tommy Lee Jones' character? Like, he was on a long voyage, and he was good when he left, but he got fucked up by the time that he got there alone. But it doesn't sound like to me this was the case. That's why I'm saying that it doesn't feel like the psychological evaluation to set up things was taken so seriously for them, like back then, on the reality of the movie, at least. Because I've seen other space movies where they actually do it. So this would not happen.
Would you like a headcanon?
A head cannon.
I have a headcanon for you. A headcanon is an idea that will completely flip what you've been thinking, and
Oh,
you'll
please.
go.
Please.
Okay, here's my headcanon for silent running. Okay, now everybody, and I mean everybody on Earth, is eating artificially created food which has been nutritionally balanced for humanity as it stands on Earth. So unlike what we do today, where we highly process food and turn it into basically poison for people's bodies, they've created all this artificial food and they've got full control over it, so they can limit the amount of sugar, they can give you the right amount of things to create people which are stable and functional and can work in the environment. Let me finish. Do not jump in on me. Let me finish. This is my headcanon. What you doing? Now, Lau was supposed to be eating the artificial food, but what he did was he grew his own. Now, all plants take up what is in the soil, be it good or bad. They weren't necessarily expecting anybody to grow their own fruit and vegetables and eat them during this trip. So who knows what was in that soil? Because they were expecting everybody to eat the processed crap, which may not have actually been crap.
Yep.
Lau grows his own food and eats it. Now, anybody who's grown food in toxic soil would know that the toxins come along with the food. What if he poisoned the fuck out of himself?
Wouldn't that work the same just for the oxygen that these plants are providing to the dome?
No.
No?
No. Photosynthesis is a system completely separate from the nutrition of the plant. The only thing that comes into photosynthesis from the plant roots is water, and it only takes the water. It doesn't take anything else dissolved in it. So when the oxygen is released, it's released as a molecule of oxygen. It has nothing else attached to it, so it's safe. But if you eat the flesh of the plant, that will have any toxins that it's taken up within it. Now, those toxins wouldn't necessarily poison the plant, but they, like dioxins and things like that, could poison you.
Wow.
Even to the touch, if you think about it, because there's plants that do.
I never thought about that.
So exactly, this is my headcanon. So the reason why Lau went off the deep end and murdered people and went so psycho could actually be because he grew his own food.
Not only that, the zombie fungi, imagine if that's what's happening to him.
No, you're getting too far out there. I'm just talking about basic food grown in toxic soil. I mean, the soil could be toxic.
It would be interesting because the fungi is making it defend self-survival, the dome.
Now you're starting to get into the realm of what's that series with the Umbrella Corporation?
The Umbrella Corporation, Resident Evil.
Resident Evil. Yeah, it's starting to sound Resident Evil to me. So yeah, that's my headcanon for this movie. Maybe he poisoned himself.
That is very possible.
That's why he lost his shit.
That is very possible because it is obvious that this was not important. Mm-hmm. So if it's not important, they can use whatever dirt. And if Earth was...
It actually was some kind of a special encapsulated dirt on those white containers. Remember?
Yeah.
And they had lots of it.
Yeah. So it could have been dirt that was brought up from Earth that is already contaminated.
That's
it could be waste. It could be waste mulched. So even though
it wasn't explained in the movie why they'd given up on the domes and were jettisoning them. No, maybe it was because they were too dangerous to bring back because they were toxic.
Everywhere that I looked, and they're like going back to the comment that was said in the film where they said, jettison the domes and return the ships to commercial circulation. And people are taking that. Obviously, that doesn't say much on its own, right?
No.
There's a lot of assumptions that said that it was the corporations that felt this was taking a lot of money. It wasn't worth the investment. So just, scrap it and bring it back. We need the ships. which is something that is not expressed in the film. But you can kind of assume based on that comment, I guess. What do you feel? You guys feel about
They-
it?
They're very vague about reasoning and very dismissive about it, to be honest. And I think that all the three of us, it got us like, but why? Like we wanted to know more on reasoning because it was very like abrupt and like without explanation. The reasoning of getting rid of this, And at the end of the day, yeah, you're right. I mean, if you think about it, that's why we have scientists on ISS running experiments. Is that you can't create a whole new array of bacteria just because they're in outer space. It's going to be a new breed of something else that we don't know of. You know,
Well, all life forms attempt to
adapt.
respond to changes in the environment to survive.
Mhm.
Now, human beings take a long time to evolve
Adapt.
into or adapt to an environment because we have long generation times. Bacteria adapt very quickly because they have short generation times. So they can have like thousands of generations by the time we have one.
That's what I can hang out with any kind of person. Not like a bacteria.
So bacteria are always changing, and they're swapping genes. They like exchange genes between bacterium, even of different species.
And horny
Yeah.
integration.
So they're chucking DNA all over the joint. So it's all in an attempt to be able to adapt to environmental changes. So you take bacteria up to the International Space Station. What is the thing that's changed the most?
Gravity.
Bingo.
And the lack of electromagnetic field too. I think that would affect heavily.
Oh yeah, so extra radiation, definitely.
Extra radiation.
Yeah. So, it's one of those things that's the water you swim in. You don't notice it until it's gone. Gravity is one of those things that everybody takes for granted because we're all down here on the Earth and we've all got some. But
And most of us probably gonna live and die without experiencing the lack of it.
That's right. Exactly right. And of course, you can experience a lack of gravity without dying. You experience a lack of oxygen, you're gonna die.
I mean, you can go swimming, but that's not. I don't think that that's the same as lack of gravity. To be honest, I don't think that even free falling is the same thing as lack of gravity.
You experience a lack of air pressure, you're probably going to die because the pressure inside your body is 1 atmosphere and the pressure outside your body is 1 atmosphere. So you don't go kaplooey or kaploppy. But if you experience 0 atmosphere, you get thrown into a vacuum, you're going to swell up because it's certainly your eyeballs are going to because they're.
It's not like The Expanse. I just burn up a little bit and freeze.
Well, I'm not talking about zero degrees Kelvin here. I'm talking about 0 atmosphere, like zero atmospheric pressure. So you experience 0 atmospheric pressure without anything else changing, you're still going to be in trouble. You experience a lack of oxygen, you're going to be in trouble. You experience a lack of gravity, you'll float around a bit. It won't kill you.
You said that, it makes me wonder. You know how my head just goes and stops.
I've been saving this up for weeks, man.
How is it possible to experience lack of pressure and not lack of oxygen? And I'm trying to visualize that in my head.
If you had a mask on with a ventilator.
Yeah, but I mean, you can have you're porous even if you have a mask. The void is gonna affect you.
I was in my head. I was visualizing without a mask.
Let me put it this way: if you put a mask and you're in empty space, you'll get sucked out of your asshole because of the pressure, or your eye sockets, or your ears.
What is that song that we have on our YouTube channel? Moving on.
Moving on. Yes.
Moving on.
The song I wrote about Geo. Oh, dear. Nice. Yeah, so I mean, gravity is one of those things that if you don't have it, it won't kill you. In fact, gravity is more likely to kill you than not, because if you're floating around and suddenly you get 1G, you're going to fall to your death. But if you're floating around and there's no gravity, it's not going to kill you. It will have detrimental effects eventually, but it's not going to kill you straight away. Whereas all the other ones, lack of atmosphere, lack of oxygen, they're all pretty deadly. So, taking a bacteria up to...
I guess that's why they measure the level of fucked upness of a problem by gravity. The gravity.
The gravity of the situation. Exactly. Exactly.
That's why we need to research space whales.
Space whales.
Oh dear. Yeah. So you take a bacteria up to space and give it, a couple of years up there, it will adapt. Because it has so many individuals, like many, many, many individuals in a bacterial colony, and they're all replicating super fast. So you're going to have lots and lots of generations. So they will have the best chance to adapt. You put a person up there, not going to go so well. You're going to lose bone mass. It's going to stuff up your organs. It's going to screw up your heart. Your brain's going to stop functioning properly. Lack of gravity is bad for humans. It really is.
Oh, yeah. We normally go into this rabbit hole.
Yeah. No, so I wanted to say that in Soylent Green, what am I saying? God, that's a different movie. You've got me on that one, Robert. On Silent Runnings, running. It's not plural.
It's just one running.
They must have had gravity plating.
Yes,
because obviously they didn't have the budget to have people floating around. So everybody was just stuck to one surface. And of course, everybody who's ever listened to us knows the rants we go on about. In space, there is no up.
Yes. And I want to say that this was grabbed from Star Trek, because Star Trek was 67.
Well, 66 was the first pilot. 67 was the second pilot.
67.
Yeah,
thank you, Lucille Ball.
You know what's the only other way that I can think of you can create gravity in outer space? Really possible? It's a sphere and everything inside of it is laying down off the edges of it. So as it around, it creates a centrifugal force. Everything stays stuck in that edge of the wheel.
That is the
possible way to create gravity in space. That
the matter making up the wheel will have a gravity. But it won't.
And the other thing is, you can grow trees without gravity, anyways. If you think of, because I mean, where are you gonna put this soil? And what is it gonna? The leaves gonna come out of what? You know.
Life adapts to its environment, and when it's taken out of its environment, it's in a bad way, in general. Unless it's very, very basic life, like bacteria and single cellular organisms and stuff like that don't have all these complicated systems to advance their well-being within their selected environment.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I know that was a very complicated statement, but I had to make it complicated. Sorry. But yeah, obviously the Valley Forge and its sister ships had gravity plating because everything was sticking to a surface and there was a down. Having said that, the domes were on different tangents on the gantry sticking out. So they were like this, right? And they had gravity. So the bottoms of the domes must have had gravity plating pulling down against the covering of the dome, pulling down against the surface where the environments were. So they had to have had gravity plating. There's no other way it could have worked. And that's a pretty significant technology. As we were saying, cycle back about 15 minutes in our conversation, we were talking about gravity manipulation being a very important technology for doing well in space.
Do you think that gravity plating it's a technology that we can at least theoretically explain it, or is this something completely out of fantasy right now?
We're only on the very cusp of understanding gravity, of measuring gravity waves.
I think that we're
manipulating it way off.
Yes,
at this point, unless there's a major breakthrough.
I think we are researching to understand it, and this is why in some of the shows, if you notice, I send my low-key message to CERN. So like, hurry up, CERN, if you're listening, please.
Yeah,
we need gravity research. So yes, we are researching, but I agree with Ray. We are way off. And
CERN, please stop putting the Hadron Collider on, because I'm tired of new Mandela effects every day. Please.
I don't know what's happened to your microphone, Gio, but it's just died in the ass.
Yeah, we can barely hear what you were saying.
Really? You cannot hear me?
Oh, now,
You fix something. It must be a loose connection somewhere.
yeah, I know.
It's gotta be. I just
Ooh.
moved the
Really
one.
bad.
It's gone crackly.
Oh no, I'm muting myself when I'm not talking because of that.
Yeah.
Hello. Yo,
Wow.
can you hear me?
It's really bad. It's probably the connection or a electric cable went into. So you were saying
Better?
that. Ooh,
No.
yep.
He's gone to fiddle with cables.
Instead of Captain Chaos, go get me a Pepsi. It's like
Go, Chaos, fix your mic.
go get some cables.
Oh dear. So yeah, they must have had gravity plating because otherwise they couldn't have had their motorsport.
It would have been a different sport altogether.
And it's interesting that the domes were on different angles, but yet when they drove into them, they all seemed to be on the same angle. So
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how that worked.
I wonder, I guess if you can control gravity, it could kind of like, depending on where you put the plating. And again, that sounds to me exactly how it would actually work on a Federation ship from Star Trek. So I mean, when I agree with you in that statement, because I noticed, I don't know if you noticed when he was going from one to another, there was kind of like going up in some points and then going down in others.
Yeah.
And then there was a flat area. So I always wonder if like when he goes up and goes down, it's going into another section of the ship. And because of the gravity plating below, we don't really see a difference. It just looks like a hill. But then again, that's just me assuming because there's no explanation.
Well, I thought maybe that long straight section before he got into the dome, actually he drives onto one end and then it twists to match the dome while he's driving down it, and you can't tell it's twisting because you're watching him from a matching pivot, so everything pivots, including the viewpoint, so you can't actually tell. I mean, that would be one way to do it.
Because if you think about it, going to your comment about there's no right or down, I mean up or down in space, you could have a loop going like this, right? And you could go in through the walls, but if you have gravity plating on the other side, you wouldn't really tell.
Well, it depends. You'd have a set of gravity plating pulling in a direction. Now, if you had another set pulling in another direction, you'd get interference.
Yes.
So rather than trying to have multiple sets working against each other, creating gravities off direction from the previous set, have a section that when you drive into it, it just then rotates to match the gravity plating on the section you're driving into, and then there's no problems. You only have the one set of gravity plating. It's always pulling down. It's just moved.
Yeah.
Much like the Earth moves as it rotates, but we don't notice because it's always pulling down.
Yeah. Well, our gravity plating is always moving through space.
Yes, it sure is. It is one of those fundamental, amazing things of life that we can sit here spinning like a top on a planet, which is spinning like a top around a star, which is moving through space, and we don't feel any of it. You feel like you're sitting still because everything is maintained at equilibrium.
Oh, well, when you have a couple of drinks extra, you actually feel it. Everything bubbles around.
Alcohol just ruins the entire effect, does it?
Alcohol heightens your senses, so you can sense how the Earth is moving through space.
Also,
Do you reckon Spider-Man would be able to tell?
Alcohol heightens your senses.
So you heard it here first on this show. So all the scientists out there, we have a major discovery.
Plus, alcohol keeps you disinfected. It kills bacteria. But be careful. If you have a rotten brain, you'll kill it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so my headcanon for this show is that Lau actually poisoned himself.
Yeah.
So
very possible, actually.
I mean, I wouldn't put it past him. He was supposed to be a horticulturalist and a biologist, but he wasn't very biological. if he couldn't work out that you go away from the star, you're getting less light. Duh.
That was like when he was like going like this. It's like, I mean, is he a real bio? That's why I said at the beginning, like, really, really.
Not only that,
Mhm.
another big hole in the plot too. If you notice, is when he puts the lights because the plants are dying. They're coming to Earth, so they're not close to the sun. That's for sure. They're coming towards Earth, so they're far away from it. It's not that it has sunlight and it doesn't have it anymore. So, like the plants had light before. I don't think that those lights really made a difference. And that to me,
Uh,
like, wait
I
a
think
second.
lights made a difference, but how long would the battery last?
Not only that, but like think about it. How did their plants grow before? Like, did they grow these before coming back to Earth? Because they were
Well,
coming far away from Earth, so they
no,
were
no,
not
no,
close
no,
to the sun.
no, no, no. You don't get. You've obviously missed something in the plot. He faked damage to the ship, drove the Valley Forge through the rings of Saturn to hide it from the other ships, and then he buggered off out system towards
Okay.
Neptune.
Okay, so he was moving away from Earth.
Yes,
I thought it was going
fleeing.
towards. Okay.
No,
No,
he was running away.
The scene that you saw where he took out the telescope, if you pay close attention, you notice the Earth
I
getting
saw the Earth getting smaller.
it was the planet was getting smaller and smaller as he was looking through the telescope.
You're completely garbled. Gio's having an awful time with his microphone today. It was beautiful when we started. I don't know what went wrong.
Oh yes, beautiful. So I don't know what's
He
going.
he must have used up all his good audio, and now he's just got the junk left over.
Yeah.
Uh,
But no, yeah. I don't know if we got Gio back, but yeah, that's one of the things that we
Can
know.
you hear me?
Yeah. Oh yes. No
I just
static.
refreshed the web browser.
No static.
Stupid computer.
now you're perfect.
Yeah.
I just refreshed the browser. Stupid computer. So much for smart devices.
Blame it on Lau.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he did a lot of bad things in this movie. Wow. He went from we should protect the environment to fuck you guys. it's the environment or you get to die. And why I thought he was a bit autistic was because he was so focused on the one dome, the one that he was growing his veggies in, that had the forest that he associated with. I think that was the biome that he grew up in. Like he lived in Minnesota or somewhere where there was lush forests, and that was the forest that was in that dome, and that's why he had a connection to it. So it was an emotional connection. And when they were just going to shoot it out in space and blow it up, he got really emotional about it, and that's why he put his foot down and said, "No, you're not going to blow up my dome," and started, basically mutiny. And going against the other guys on the ship, which, yes, they were all assholes, but they were assholes following orders.
yes.
So it wasn't really their fault. You're still muted, Gio. So I can see you talking, but I can't hear you.
Yes.
So I mean, they were assholes, and they were doing things he didn't like, but they weren't doing the wrong thing according to the instructions they were given. I found it odd that no one on the ship seemed to be the captain, the guy in charge.
Yes.
Because whenever you try and do something as a collective, you always have disagreements.
Yes.
You need someone to make the final decision, where the buck stops, and things move in a direction rather than getting stalled because the committee can't make a decision.
Yeah.
There always has to be somebody who makes the final decision, so a decision is actually made, be it right or wrong. And it was 3 versus 1, so Lau was never going to win any sort of arguments in general because he was one voice, and they were 3 voices, and they all
Not only that, but he was ridiculized too. So
Yeah.
there was an argument to be had in between both parties.
Yeah.
One party
I mean,
disagreed completely what the other one had to say.
yeah. And I don't think that he was against going back to Earth. He just didn't want to destroy the biomes. Now, this is something that bugged me, another plot hole in the movie, but this is something that really bugged me. Why would you need to take those domes out to the orbit of Saturn? It's a fucking long way away. It's a lot of fuel. Why were they out there?
Yeah.
Experiment?
Well, you could do an experiment just outside Earth.
No,
I
but you
would
cannot.
want
You
to.
cannot experiment. You cannot experiment what would do the absence of the sun, or how far away you can get from it and still benefit from its rays. You don't really have much experiments about it.
Well,
So we don't know for intergalactic, for interstellar travel. This will be very, very resourceful research needed in order to do so. Is
Well,
how can we interact or live on outside of the Goldilocks zones on a spaceship?
there's a lot of parameters which aren't explained in the movie, which have a big effect on how well the plants would do in that environment. Now, obviously, a plant on the surface of planet Earth has the benefit of the magnetosphere and the depth of the atmosphere to protect it from solar radiation. Now, solar radiation outside of the protection of our atmosphere and our magnetosphere is pretty fucking disastrous.
Yeah.
It will burn the fuck out of pretty much all life. Okay?
No, I mean,
so if
the ISS, if you want to know what happens, go and check the life of Scott Kelly and what happens to him after a full year on space and how he had to battle with readapting himself to Earth for almost 2-3 years, more or less. And he has a twin brother, Mark Kelly and Scott Kelly. So it was a perfect experiment for them to see how one body behaves in Earth and then what happens to the other one when it comes full year. And there's a lot of backsteps from being sold in space. And that's inside of a spaceship protected somehow.
Yeah. So you're comparing the surface of the Earth with its
And its protection
from the atmosphere and the magnetosphere versus a dome. Now that dome,
a bubble. It's a bubble.
I don't know what material it was made from, but one would presume that it would filter out maybe some of the harmful radiation. It may not get all of it. So theoretically, they may have had to move away from the sun further to reduce those negative effects to the point where the plants would survive. Now, the question is, they had to get those plants off the surface of the Earth, or maybe they had to fly out there and then plant them, which is why they had a horticulturalist with them. I hazard to call him a biologist because he just didn't understand basic plant biology. But
not even a botanist.
Obviously, they got the plants. They got the plants to grow to a certain size out there. They created these biomes which roughly matched what was on Earth as you could in a dome, as close as you could from in a dome. They had animals that matched those environments, so they would have had to bring them with them, unless they had some sort of advanced embryonic development system which birthed those animals artificially once they got on station, which on station was around Saturn. But there's a lot of questions, but the big question is, why did they have to go all the way out to Saturn? Was it because the solar radiation was too strong? And if the solar radiation is too strong until you get out to Saturn to use those domes to keep the plants alive, what happens when they bring them back? Because they were supposed to bring them back and use them to repopulate the Earth's biosphere, but would they get trashed before they got back because the domes wouldn't be strong enough to protect them? So there's all these questions about the functionality of the science and the technology and the efficacy of the whole program.
I got an answer for you.
Hmm?
A heat gun. What's in Saturn that we humans have been chasing in most sci-fi movies for resources?
Water?
No, not only that. Titan.
What about Titan?
Titan is like full of metals that we are dying to go and mine. And that's what
I mean,
Gattaca, for example, everybody prepares on society to do is get on a rocket to go to Titan. And it's a one-way ticket mission. So when you think about how far and making a one-way ticket mission, how bad would it be to have biodomes over there so you can house humans in something more uh, relatable than just metal and glass, I guess.
well,
I will see that
certainly,
utility.
if you were attempting to colonize Titan, which is a good option in the solar system because of its relative size to Earth and the materials that are available there, it is one of the considered options that, if our technology gets along far enough, it's somewhere where we'd like to set up bases. So yeah, if that was the idea, it was never mentioned in the movie, but if that was the idea, it could be a reason why they took them out there. But it was stated in the movie that they were supposed to use the contents of the domes to repopulate the biomes of Earth that have been destroyed by overutilization. But then it was given up on.
And that's what I don't understand. Going back to the original thought, why did they have to go so far out? It doesn't make sense to me if the whole idea was to repopulate Earth biomes.
Well, I don't know if literally it was repopulating the mission because there was no females really. So either the embryo mechanism they're gonna use to grow humans on a lab.
No. There was plenty of humans on Earth. There was no shortage.
No, not on Earth. On whatever they're going.
On Titan.
We're talking about the reason why they had the domes is because they want to repopulate the Earth biomes with
That's what they stated.
The fruit.
I think that those biodomes are too small to house anybody on them. I think that they were more of like a project to probably expand the branches of nature of these things with the soil or whatever they go.
Why are you saying anybody? I'm talking about plants and animals. I'm not talking about humans.
Well, I'm talking about the humans taking the plants. Like it's like a biodome is too small for you to house people. Like that biodome, at least.
But that was
small.
That wasn't the whole purpose. The people there is just to protect the dome, not to anything else. And the whole idea, unless I'm wrong, Ray, the idea was to get those domes and get them back to Earth so they can have plants for the first time, and animals and fruit and all this stuff.
Where the plants came from? So where did the plant came from? They didn't come from Earth.
That's another good one.
The ones that are in the
other thing, these domes are made on space, right? Because how can you get that out of the ground into outer space?
Well, it's supposed to be an advanced technology. I mean, consider that they have gravity plating. We can assume that they have really advanced technologies because we don't even have that now.
No. That's what I'm saying. Like I look at the dome, it's detachable, and I cannot think of a way that you can lift up that structure out of the ground into orbit.
Let me put it this way. They were obviously controlling gravity. So just by controlling gravity, they could build this on the ground and lift it up to space.
Just hover it up. Okay. Yeah.
Without having, and that's my argument on previous shows and why I tell CERN, please hurry up, because the major, factor in taking things into space today is the incredible amount of money that it costs to carry fuel. Like I want to say 80 to 90% of the capacity of a spaceship is for fuel only.
Yep. And that's to breach orbit.
That's crazy. So if we can control gravity, we can take anything into space, without gravity.
We can take anything anywhere.
Exactly.
You imagine if there will be like a zone on Earth where like don't step in here, this is an anti-gravity area. And if you cross that line, it's just like everything floats in there.
So
one of the competing theories for creating faster than light travel is a gravity drive. If we can control gravity, we could create an engine which could travel faster than the speed of light.
Yeah.
Because when you screw around with gravity enough, you get the effects near a black hole.
I mean, the gravity is a concept that you can drive it to the infinite. So it can go faster than the speed of light when you think of those of those concepts. I think that is going to be instrumental for being able to use technology like Alcubierre drives for sure.
I think gravity is our only or one of the limitations that humanity has for interplanetary travel.
Because we cannot defeat it, nor we can carry it with us. Look how crazy it is. We want to be able to nullify it, but we cannot live without it. So we want to be able to take it with us too, so we can use it or emulate it when needed to allow us to live under veil.
See, generating 1G of gravity will cost a certain amount of energy. So these gravity plates under the floor, which are creating the gravity, would be consuming power all the time. Now, to negate 1G, one would think you can't just turn a gravity plate over and make it go in the other direction and
magnetic field
gravity.
Field,
you basically create 1G going in the other direction, and the gravity plate would go clunk, because it would be attracted to the Earth and the Earth would be attracted to it.
Yes.
So gravity manipulation or creating gravity versus gravity manipulation, they're actually two different things.
Yes.
So to negate gravity and create something that just ignores gravity and can hover away or go wherever you want is maybe energetically much more demanding.
Not only that, you're right about that, because the problem is when you look at gravity, and if you want to control it, you don't want to control the subjects that are being affected by it. So you're looking at not at controlling individuals and the effects on it, but you're looking at an area that you want to nullify electromagnetic effect on it. I've seen a guy doing the whole opposite thing, but of course he has to use props for it. But like he puts like aluminum rods on his floats. He goes to the beach and he puts like big magnets and he attach it to like a big power plant. And then he floats because he creates a magnetic field around him. He covers it with the sand on the beach, so it looks freaking cool. And basically, he floats like I would say like almost 2-3 meters up in the air, and people start walking around him and like they're under him, and he's floating because he's creating this magnetic field, and he has magnetic rods inside of his clothing that you cannot see, well attached. So he's all lifted up in the air. So I would say that something like that is that we can create, because I cannot think of a way to really create the absence of gravity or nullify magnetic field on a controlled space.
I want to say, and Ray, correct me if I'm wrong, I want to say that is completely different. That is a manipulation of magnetic fields. I think what we really need is a manipulation of gravity, or like they call them gravitons, the gravity particles.
Well, they're theoretical at the moment.
Exactly.
I mean, it's only been about a decade since they actually managed to measure gravity waves from two black holes coming together.
Yeah.
So before that, the only way you could know that gravity existed was by its physical representation of things coming together and sticking together like they do, like us standing on the planet.
Yeah.
Now, another thing about gravity plates is the theory of it is a bit tricky, right? Because you have to have directional gravity. Now, everybody might think that gravity is directional because, it's always pulling you down to the ground.
It pulls or pushes.
Well, it's pulling you down towards the ground. Everybody creates their own microgravity, and the Earth creates a lot of gravity because it's a large mass, and the two come together. So if there's nothing holding you up, you will go down to the surface of the Earth. Now, it may feel like the gravity is directional because wherever you stand on the Earth, you're pulled towards it. But no, gravity is completely circular. Gravity is ovoid. It doesn't have a direction. It's pulled towards the center of whatever the mass is. And if the Earth wasn't solid, if it was a liquid or a gas, you would be pulled down to the center of it. If you went and tried to stand on the surface of Saturn, you would be sucked straight through the cloud layer, and you would keep going till you hit something solid down near the core. And if there was no solid core, you would just keep going till you got to the middle, and that's where you would stay for eternity.
No. But I mean, we're all sure that you will melt and evaporize before you make it.
This is true. But imagine if you had God mode on and you couldn't be destroyed.
God mode on. I like that.
But what I'm saying is that it feels like gravity is directional because you're standing on a huge planet, and all those people who are confused about the flat Earth, it feels flat, but it's not. It's just got a very, very slight curve. But wherever you stand on that slight curve, you're being pulled towards the center. So gravity is not directional. Gravity is completely spheroidal. It pulls towards the center of mass all the time. So when you're creating gravity plates, if you created something that produced one gravity, things would be pulled from all directions to it. It wouldn't be a plate pulling in one direction. It'd be pulling in all directions as things move towards it. So say the gravity plating on the floor above you would pull you up to the ceiling because it would be one gravity. So it would be very confusing in the initial stages, because you would have to find a way to create directional gravity, not rely on normal spheroidal gravity.
On a center.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, unless the problem is that it's spherical. That's the problem. Like our ideas of creating gravity in space are wheels, not a sphere.
But that's not even gravity. That's just centrifugal force.
Centrifugal force.
It's not actually gravity.
It's some kind of synthetic gravity, you can call it, if you want to,
Simulated gravity.
Simulated gravity. And when I look at what gravity plates work like, it's really a very vague concept still. Because gravity plates creates gravitons, but like how the hell you do that process to create the gravitons?
And how do you make them directional?
Exactly.
While you guys are talking, I was really drawn into a question that we had earlier as to why they were all the way out there. And I discovered something that makes sense. So I was doing some quick research as you guys were talking. So the question is, how far away do you need to be from the sun to be safe from the sun's radiation? Now, that being said, there's no safe space from cosmic radiation.
That's what I was gonna say.
No safe
I didn't think that radiation is coming straight up and solely from the UV lights rate of the sun.
If we put that away for a minute, the cosmic radiation, which is all going to be an issue wherever you are, it says that you need to be around 20 AUs for the radiation for any.
That's like years.
Sun.
1 AU is 2 light years, right?
No. I'll explain that in a minute. But the sun has different radiations, not just one. Many different radiations that affects you. 20 AUs. Let me explain that. 1 AU is the distance between the sun and Earth.
Okay.
It's basically 8 light minutes.
So yes. So they call that astronomical. What is it?
Astronomical unit.
That's around Jupiter's. That's around Jupiter's length, right?
That is around. Let me say.
I think so.
Let me correct myself here before I even speak. But we're talking about Uranus.
Between Uranus.
Where were they?
Saturn.
Well, they were at Saturn, and he then tried to bugger off even deeper out towards Uranus.
Exactly. So now that kind of makes sense to me in a way, right? Let me say this in a way, because if they're far enough or advanced enough to have gravity plating, I'm assuming that they have some sort of or some way to protect
plasma shield or antimatter shield. I would think that those are the ways to protect yourself from something intangible like radiation. Something that separates matter.
Assuming that they wanted to protect the plants from sun radiation, that would have been one way to go. The farther you get away from the sun, the better. However, that still doesn't explain cosmic radiation.
Well, plants don't live on cosmic radiation. Plants live on visible light in the red and blue spectrum.
Photons.
So, and they do best at, you know, lower level atmosphere on the planet Earth that we know of. That's what they're evolved to deal with. So there's a certain amount of scattering and reduction of thermal radiation and light that gets into the atmosphere, that gets to the plant surface, to the leaves. So the leaves need a certain amount of visible light and a little bit of UV to do their thing and produce photosynthesis and produce carbon for growth, and they release oxygen, which they also use at night. So what a lot of people don't understand is plants aren't altruistic. They're not like, oh, the poor little animals, they need some oxygen to breathe. Oh, we'll just come over here and we'll make some for them. No, plants require oxygen as well. Plants use oxygen in their respiration. Plants respire just like animals do. But plants make excess oxygen. Why do plants make excess oxygen? Because at night, when there's no sunshine, they can't photosynthesize. So plants produce oxygen, extra oxygen during the day, so they've got some at night. That's why they do it. It's not, they don't think, hey, I'm going to need that at night. No, that's just the way it evolved, okay? The whole thing just worked out that way. Evolution is one of those, it just worked out that way kind of things. So the plants are producing the oxygen for themselves, but some of them are a bit better at it than others. And there's also some small diatoms floating around on the surface of the ocean, which also produce oxygen, and they're doing it for themselves, but they produce a bit extra. Well, they're cyanobacteria, and which I think is probably the culprit for what they're using for the basis of their artificial food in this
plankton too. I think works helps to the production of oxygen.
Yeah. So basically, these creatures are looking after themselves because they're producing extra oxygen. So at night, when there's no sunshine to help them split water and create oxygen, they've got oxygen already there that they can breathe at night. So plants breathe. It's single-celled organisms. They also breathe. We breathe. Everybody's got to breathe. We all undergo respiration, so we require oxygen. And the plants and the diatoms are making a bit extra for nighttime use, but then they, over millions of years, they've made so much extra that it was available for animals when they evolved. So it's all this incidental helpfulness. It's not deliberate. It's not altruistic in the slightest. Plants aren't here to help us breathe. We're nicking their spare oxygen.
Yep.
No, I mean, plants are farming us because we die, we become part of the soil, and we feed it. Literally. If you look at it. And not only that, but like people, I think that we as society, like scientifically, like we underestimate the value of our oceans too. People look at a plant and they think that people think that plants are the only reason that we get oxygen. People don't understand that half of the oxygen you can breathe comes from the ocean. They don't understand that.
Yeah.
You know?
It was actually saying, I was reading something here, was saying that 1 in every 5 breaths is thanks to diatoms.
If you think about it, the larger portion of this globe is water.
That's true. Yes.
You know, and the largest part that we haven't been able to really tarnish and kill fully to the core is the ocean.
But we're trying hard.
We're trying hard for sure. all the oil spillings, even if they're accidents that I don't think that for generations gonna have a fix.
Microplastic.
You know? Hey, they are on your tilapias too.
But I mean, this swings us right back around to silent running. The movie is all about we fucked up and destroyed our environment. Do we still need it? Well, somebody decided no. Basically.
Yep.
and one man stood up for the environment, or his little.
I hate
the
it.
environment.
Let me ask you this: how do you guys felt about the end? Like Robert knows me. I have a knack for blood. I like everybody dying on a movie. It's fabulous, but it's like why he didn't stay in the dome and just went on. Like it's like I think that the final decision kind of put the golden brush, the confirmation. He was. It's not like he was cuckoo, but he was going up with a plan. He was uh, going through some real problems up in the head.
I think he knew that he wasn't going to be able to survive in the dome long term.
Yeah. The dome wasn't going to be enough to support him.
And he was not
He
gonna eat
knew
that
that.
replicated shit.
Well, I think it was more like they were going to discover everything he did.
Yeah.
He killed what, 3 people
Yeah.
and destroy company property. So it wasn't going to be sunshines for him if he returns.
Yeah, but if you think about it, he had a big head start. So let's think that everybody's back on Earth. If he just turns around and just went to deep space,
Yeah, he
he
wasn't
might
going to.
survive.
Live a prisoner or die a hero? What do you choose?
Die a hero.
So yeah, I'd say that his mental state was pretty bad
Yes.
after being alone for that
Shambles.
long. He was anthropomorphizing the droids, so he was having psychological issues.
Big
And I
time.
think that based on what I could see of his actions and his musings, he was being whipped up inside by guilt.
But at a subconscious level,
Yeah.
like he was not really rationalizing the hard consequences of the things that he did that were not apparently were not choices.
Well,
Some of them were choices and some were not.
most people work on different levels. Okay, so there's the conscious level, there's the subconscious level, there's the social level, there's the survival level, there's the consequential level. That's the if I do this, what will happen? This is a crime, so I will be arrested and bad things will happen to me. I don't
Causality.
want that, so I won't do it, or I will do it and I'll try and get away with it. Can I pin it on somebody else? So there's a lot of ways that human minds work that sometimes, well, in some people quite oftentimes, work against each other. So you can rationalize that you need to kill off your crewmates because they're going to destroy the thing that matters to you most in the world, or in space, as it was in this case. But then you can be torn up by guilt about it because you know that killing is wrong. You just wanted to save your biodome, which is your happy place, but everybody else was out to destroy it, and this was the only way you could save it. Nobody would listen to you, but you murdered people, and you feel that is wrong. So you've acted in a way to achieve your end, but in doing so, you've doomed yourself to a spiraling guilt.
You want me to deconstruct that right there,
That's
that behavior, that thought? I can deconstruct it psychologically to explain it better. I think
Okay.
that is the consequence of not committing to what he was gonna do, really. Because if in his mind is it's either you guys or the domes, and he commits to that, he knows that he has to kill them, and he's not gonna be remorsed about it, you know. But in not really thinking too much about it, and then dealing with it when it happened, and not wanting to deal with the thoughts of it, it's what also like it's like a pressure cooker, you know. It pops
Oh yeah.
eventually, you know. And I think that he did a great job acting on showing that behavior, on trying not to deal with the reality, but still going on, like it still go forward with what he was doing, and it eventually just broke him.
Well, if he was in a good mental place, he might have tried to make it work in the dome. But he was not in a good mental place. He was breaking down,
and he was like anthropomorphing the robots and stuff like that. I think that was depicting of behaviors of trying to avert himself to the reality constantly.
Yeah. He was trying not to look at the reality of what he'd done, and in the end, he felt he deserved to be punished So he basically committed suicide.
Honestly, I don't know how he
took-
can feel sorry for those assholes.
Wow. I mean, the concept of murder is bad, murder is wrong is pummeled into us from a very young age through religious, social law perspectives. It's all now there are people that just doesn't penetrate into it, bounces straight off them, psychopaths, because they have no empathy. And there's people who it will absolutely choke to death. That guy there. Because he has huge amounts of empathy. So, and then I'm not real sure about this guy here.
I will live happily ever after along in my dome.
He's in that dome. If you notice, we are in the Valley Forge right now. So this is the happy ending dome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that one is a chaotic dome. And that one over there is a scientific dome. And if you notice, look at all the asteroids. So
you're gonna see a lot of rainbows and sparkles on this dome. And this dome does a lot of party, and all the weird animals and insects that can kill you and shit are gonna be there. They have kangaroos.
So you should just call your dome Australia, and you're done with it.
They have kangaroos there and ostrich too. So watch out with the kangaroos, though. Motherfuckers kick hard.
Sure do.
Bro, kangaroos have like fucking 2-inch claws, bro. Those things are scary motherfuckers.
I will point you towards a cassowary that has 5-inch claws. In 2012,
that's the bird. That's the bird with a blue face that runs. Oh, bro!
It's
I would never like to see that thing.
Yeah, the tactical assault turkey.
That thing. I heard. I actually watched some documentaries about it. That shit is scary. That shit actually like they say it's vengeful. It has a photographic memory, and it would chase your fucking car and kick you.
In 2012, a guy was kicked by one of these things off a cliff, a 3-meter high cliff, into the ocean. He survived, but he wasn't in a good way.
Robert, no, for real. Like, there's stories out there of people like literally saying, like, I'm in the car, we're going, and this thing is running and looking at me. And the car is going 60 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour. And the thing is running and looking at me. That's a scary, bro. When you don't feel safe even in the car running.
Wow.
Welcome to Australia. Get killed.
Man, you're making it difficult. I do want to go and visit you.
Well, look, I've managed to survive 55 years, mainly by staying indoors. But
we'll be there. We'll be safe, locked indoors.
You're right.
So I guess.
No. I'm not locked in this cage because I'm a criminal. I'm locked in this cage to keep away from the shit that's out there. Sorry. Go back to your regularly scheduled program.
Oh, you gotta watch out because if you come to my dome, I'll blow up all of yours and boom, it's just me.
So I guess that leads us to the last question of the show.
Yeah.
And
Robert, would you marry me? I know that's not the last
He's
question.
already married.
Yeah.
He's gotta love this. We can share him.
Robert's creating a harem. Woo!
Happy ending harem. That doesn't sound right.
Moving
on. So the last question of the show, if you're new to the show, is what is the last impression of the thing we're covering? Who wants to go first? Should we go and let the newbie go first? And then
let the newbie go first because I'll just say everything he wants to say.
All right. This movie was fun to watch. As you can tell, we could continue to talk for 2 more hours about this shit.
Oh yeah,
because it's what I tell you. Even though the movie misses the mark a lot in accuracy with scientifically proven stuff, you raise a lot of questions and brought a lot of concepts about interstellar travel that most people don't really consider or sit down to think about it, and many movies don't even bring up. So it was very interesting on that aspect. It's crazy, you know. It's kind of like the reason why we do the podcast. This movie kind of like became that reason for sci-fi because the plot is not the brightest, but like the movie brings so much conversation when you look at everything that's going on it in both aspects. So I think that this will be. You should watch it a couple of times for sure. It's a fun movie if you can look at it with a cynic mind, like I did. Uh, and there's a lot to be, I will say, found inside the movie because you can find a lot of reasons on why we behave this way or that way. I think that this movie became a telltale, the classic. We screw the earth and we're trying to get away from it. You know, and I think that this movie actually did inspire many sci-fis that we know across the time. Like we said on pre-show or earlier this show, I am sure that a lot of like Space Odyssey things that you can see in here. Or what, like I say, this is Space Odyssey and Prometheus and met in space.
Yeah.
Hey, those are my last thought, man. I'm probably gonna rewatch this one.
Nice. Okay. You want me to go next or?
Yeah, you can go next.
Okay. So this movie, and again, we spoke about this earlier. It's interesting. This is one of those films that you change your perception of it as time passes. I was lucky enough to watch this when I was 10 years old. And I watched it with the awe of a 10-year-old boy who loves sci-fi. And as I watched this through the years, I discover how deep the concept within this film goes. And it shows you kind of like how deep would humanity go, um, giving you different perspectives, a personal perspective, a joint perspective, a political worldwide perspective, and a commercialization perspective. And it's slightly scary because, as Ray mentioned earlier, this echoes what happens today. And this was in 1972. So this movie is not, like I said earlier, it is entertainment, but it's not entertaining. You want to look at this as you would look at 2001 Space Odyssey for the context that it brings. And it's really, really interesting perspective on humanity. Um, this is definitely a watch. I recommend if you, especially if you like 2001, you watch this film. But if you like sci-fi as a whole, especially hard sci-fi, I would recommend you watch this and get back to us and let us know what is your um, your thoughts on the film. This film was brought to us by a fan, and I do please forgive me. We get so many suggestions, and I honestly don't know who, which one of our fans recommended this, because we haven't covered it before, and it was really interesting because when that topic came up, I couldn't come up with a reason as to why we haven't covered it yet. This is a very iconic film, and watching this makes you understand sci-fi, not only what sci-fi is today, but how far we have changed. Remember, this is 1972. This is the type of sci-fi that I long for, that I miss, and this is pre. I like to call the pre-Star Wars era, where after that sci-fi changed forever, and this is the type of sci-fi that I actually miss, and I wish we could get more of these on today's entertaining. But however, if you watch this, if you never watched this before, reach out to us on Discord. We want to have those conversations. We want to see if you agree with any of the topics that we brought up on this show. And of course, if you're watching this on YouTube a month later, just join on our comments. just go to the comment section below, and let's have a conversation. Let us know what you think about this. And I'll leave.
No. Let him know. Don't let us know. Let him know.
Let us know what you think. And this is definitely a watch. I would recommend, especially if you like hard sci-fi. And that is my last thought.
Cool. I tend to take the big screen. So,
I remember,
Silent
you gotta
Running
do all that jazz hands. All that jazz.
Silent Running is a movie that occupies a special place in my sci-fi memories because it was one of the earliest sci-fi movies that I remember seeing. I know that before this, I had seen parts of a few episodes of the original Star Trek. Now, as Robert has alluded to, and I pretty much agree with everything that both of these guys have said, but as Robert has alluded to, it was sci-fi of a different era. These days, the big sci-fi budgets go to the big explosions, the big fancy adventure-y movies that are telling a story that lands differently from how sci-fi landed in the era that this movie was produced. Even the original Star Trek, which had a bit more adventure to it than shows like 2001: A Space Odyssey and this Silent Running, it was more of a contemplative view of sci-fi. It wanted you to think. It wanted you to ask questions about what we are doing to our planet, what that might lead to, where we are going, what we're likely to lose, what we're prepared to lose, and what we want to try and protect. So, you know, these are the big questions which are still 100% important today. Obviously, this movie predicted that things would move a lot quicker than they have. We haven't destroyed our planet yet, but we're still working on it. So we do need to, again, contemplate sci-fi rather than just view it as entertainment and fun and interesting. And, ooh, aren't those spaceship models awesome? And, ooh, that looks like a fun adventure. I'd like to go to space and have an adventure like that. But no, actually, we need to look after our environment. We need to think about where we're going and how we're going to get there and what it's going to cost us. Because we do have a lot to lose. We still have a lot to lose. So this sort of sci-fi, and I agree with Robert 100% when he says he'd like to see more of this sci-fi made, this is not where the budget goes, unfortunately. And speaking of budget, they made this movie on such a tiny budget. They hired university students to do the model making because they couldn't afford pro modelers. So, you know, the Valley Forge looks pretty cool, but it was made by university students. It was not made by pro modelers. So that's the sort of budget scraping and saving that they had to do on this movie. So, yeah, I mean, it is one of those movies that holds a position which is really hard to pin down. It's like a flawed gemstone. It has great ideas that need to be conceptualized and communicated and thought about. And you can probably tell that all three of us have thought pretty hard about this one because there's a lot to think about. And it's one of those movies that leaves a lot up to the viewer to try and work out, which gives us, you know, huge amounts of fodder to talk about. This is the sort of movie we could talk about for another 3 hours and still not nail anything down specifically because there are a lot of gaps. And I think it was done deliberately. I think they wanted to generate consideration and discussion, but they didn't want to say, well, this is how it's going to be, because then the discussion ends because everything is clear and there will be no more discussion. Like my headcanon that I introduced, I only came up with that during the show because of what the other guys were talking about. I hadn't considered it myself before. It wasn't something that I'd had in my back pocket for 3 weeks since I watched this to say, oh, we're gonna when we come to this point, I'm gonna lay this on them and they're gonna be so. No, I came up with it on the fly because of the discussion we were having. And that's the important part about this movie. It is generating discussion. It is helping us generate new ideas, new thoughts, headcanons, considerations. And that's what we need to do with sci-fi to get people thinking and to really improve our situation going forward into the future so that we don't have bad shit like this happen. And, you know, while it is generating that discussion and bringing those ideas forward and making us think about where we're going and what we're doing, it is still entertaining us. It does have an entertainment element. It's just a little bit muddied because they tried to do so much with so little, I think, that it didn't all quite land properly. But it is still a well worthwhile movie. I'm hoping you already watched it before you listen to us, because basically we've dissected it to the point where it's bloody little chunks on the bench top. And you'll never look at it the same way again. But yeah, I think it's a well worthwhile movie. Watch it at least once, although given the number of questions it raises, you'll probably want to watch it again. And yeah, it does hold an important place in the evolution of sci-fi from the more contemplative 60s and 70s sci-fi up to the adventurous late 70s, early 80s and beyond sci-fi. And yeah, like Robert said, I'd love to see some more of this because it really does get you thinking. And we like to do that, us overthinkers.
Yep.
And that's my last words.
Awesome. Okay, so I guess we might be ready for the next segment.
Hit it.
The science in sci-fi.
I've really shot myself in the foot in this episode because I basically went on my rant a bit early. I've ranted about all the science in this already, so I've kind of shot myself in the foot for the science section. But there are a couple of things I could mention that we didn't cover in the main discussion. Now, the section that gets a bit psychedelic, kind of like they were ripping off the end of 2001: A Space Odyssey, is when they go into that very sort of light gaseous kind of storm that the ship travels through. That's when Louis gets ripped off the surface of the ship and all that's left is one of his legs. And I think that was their attempt to cheap out on the effects of moving through one of the rings of Saturn. So it didn't look very asteroidy or, you know, ice chunky. But that was probably the best they could do on the budget they had. So I think they were attempting to simulate that, but they weren't actually simulating it. So that's kind of how that one laid out. The other thing I wanted to bring up was the cockpit. I guess you call it a cockpit. The bridge of the Valley Forge kind of reminded me of a aircraft carrier bridge. Did you get that feel from it? I think that's what they were reffing. Except they chucked a whole bunch of screens in there and put oscilloscopes and shit in there to make it look fancy. I mean, he's there talking to an oscilloscope. It's like, that's not what they're for. No, sorry. But anyway, they were trying to make it look sciencey.
They were checking the electricity and they're, you know, make sure that the instruments were working right? That's not it?
Possibly.
For that, what you got to do, Robert, is you grab a fork and then you go to the next wall block and put it in.
Oh, okay, that's what it was. Okay,
That'll fix electric problems.
Yeah, permanently. For you only. Oh dear. So
it'll reset the switcher box on you, buddy.
So science-wise, there was big hits and misses. It was more the concepts that they wanted you to think about that were the hits. Because of their budget, I don't think their science advisor was actually fully fledged yet. So there was some real misses in the science side of the movie. It did take away from it a bit for my taste, but wouldn't necessarily for everybody. Like if you weren't if you weren't really keen into the science, it may not bother you so much. But for what it was, they made a really good stab at it for the budget. I feel like I said, you wouldn't even get a delivery from Taco Bell for the amount of money they spent on this movie today. It's just crazy how little they spent on this movie, and it still turned out so well.
Yeah.
So now the logic behind putting the lamps in the dome and then shooting it off into space without blowing it up. I feel like they must have had a pretty fucking good battery for those lamps, because he was like he left the poor little robot and the lamps to look after that biodome. It was not sustainable. I'm sorry.
They don't talk much about fuel means. So I will guess nuclear power.
Yeah, I was thinking
the
the same.
solution, so we are not trapped on dilemmas with space for tanking or storing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I've talked at length about plants producing oxygen. So if they would have had enough, the plants would have had enough oxygen. The question isn't enough light and enough CO2 to do their thing. The nutrients in the soil would eventually get depleted. You need breakdown products and mulch and things going on to really keep the soil in tip-top condition. So it probably would have suffered. They had enough water.
Do you think that you could create that mulch with the replicator?
It'd be hard.
Why? The replicator is supposed to do anything you ask it for, doesn't it?
Not at this.
It's probably because it's so random.
Yeah.
I mean, things that are highly ordered, machines would be better at making than things that are highly random. I mean, you could take grab a couple of trees and chop them up and create mulch that way. But you've got to grow them first. So,
Well, you could use there are species that are more invasive on that matter that are very good for quick crops, like hemp, for example, and the uses that it has. Like hemp, for example, once we discover what hemp could do, we do clothing with it, we do concrete with it, we do paper with it, we do so many things with it. Glue, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
And it's durable and easy to grow. Like you can have a crop of hemp in 2 weeks, I think.
Well, the issue of the dome surviving is how long those lamps were going to last and how long the environment would have stayed stable before something ran out. Something got out of balance.
Well,
so
there is this technology that is used. It looks like a little refrigerator. You can put a plant on it, and then you will tell the machine what plant it is. And this thing that looks like a fridge would create perfect ambient for UV lights and environment in this enclosed space for the plant to grow actually faster than it would in a natural state. So I would imagine that we're using some kind of technology like that for the biodome.
Well, then
in order to make it possible.
If you had a system like that, you would have had to have the lights already installed, so they wouldn't have had the problem in the first place.
That's what I think. The lights was not a problem, but he thought it was. Because there's lights actually on the top of the dome. If you remember, or you look back in the movie, there's like these spotlights that have like 6 or 8 lights, white lights, UV lights on top of the dome. So, and I think that was the job that it was supposed to do.
I would have thought that those lights were supplementary lights. So, calculating how much lights the plants would need, you'd have the light coming in from the sun at the orbit of Saturn, and the supplementary lights to make up the deficit. So, moving out would mean that the supplementary lights weren't doing a strong enough job, and that could be why he had to add more lights.
Yeah.
So that would make sense.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense.
It's all about getting the right amount, and if there's no computerized system upping the wattage to increase the amount of lights the lights are putting out, and if they can't put out any more light, if they're set to a particular level, then you've got no wiggle room.
All right, so let's do a little scientific parenthesis here. One could say that the strength of the photons or the light, the radiation coming out of the sun, they don't dissipate throughout the void of space, but they get actually affected throughout its course on the void of space by gravitational pulls of other big celestial bodies. That are right.
They also spread. So the
So it dissipates.
volume,
It
the
dissipates.
volume near the sun is X. The volume out at Saturn is X times 20 million.
It dissipates.
So the same amount of photons are spreading out as they go, and the gaps between them get wider and wider.
Yeah. That makes sense. That makes total
So
sense.
it's basically dilution through volume.
Through dilution through volume. Well, dissipating is the right word then.
Yeah, they dissipate. Yeah.
Yeah. Never thought of it that way. I learned something new.
Yeah, you got to think 3D like Khan couldn't.
No. It even got me thinking about a documentary that I saw about. I think it was a lady. I don't remember her name, but she was the one that discovered how we could measure the distance of planets through measuring the strength of photons on the photography.
All right.
And that's how. So it actually makes like it connects with that. It makes total sense because I did not remember or ever sit down to think of that. That probably could be an aspect. I thought that really the lights was like him trying to remediate something he had no clue about.
Yeah, true enough. No, I was just thinking that this movie's kind of like got a sad end, so I'm actually surprised that Robert likes it.
You know, it was,
Well, the robot lived on. Right, Robert?
Until his battery ran out.
I was thinking about that. And the only answer that I have for that, and let me know if you guys agree with this, is I found it hard to relate to the main character.
Of course.
And
so,
I think
so you could say that Robert didn't get invested on him, huh?
I don't think I was able to get emotionally invested with the main character. And I found it hard. I guess that's the right answer. Is like I found it hard to get emotionally invested with a character.
But I mean, I guess that Robert didn't do this, but I'll ask you, Ray. Like, did you try to get inside his head to comprehend his pattern of choices and behavior?
Oh yeah.
Because
I was trying
did
to
that.
analyze him.
So that's why I even commented earlier on the show. Like, it's stupid how you actually kind of relate to this crazy motherfucker that is murdering people in some way when you see him humanizing robots, or like when he blatantly wants to protect the dome, but then you see like,
oh, I've wanted to murder people before for things that they've done. I just haven't done it.
But Robert
I'll
didn't feel that
admit
way. So I guess that Robert could not connect with the character.
I mean, I probably would have done the same thing he did. I would have acted in emotionally and then suffered for it afterwards. So I'm glad I haven't.
Here's the thing. Remember what I said.
I am not going to space with you guys.
I found it very hard to emotionally connect. But there's a very difference from actually understanding the character.
Yeah. No, look, I could emotionally connect to him because I'm a biologist, and having all these like I wouldn't have got upset about one dome. I would have been upset for everyone, all of the domes. I would have been contacting Control, going, Control, you can't do this. You can't blow them up. Look, just let's take them back and at least just put them into orbit of Earth so they're there in case we need them. Why blow them up? Why would you do that?
Yeah.
And then they're gonna be
I would have waited until my favorite one was left and then gone, oh no, you can't blow this one up.
Yeah.
And they I'm sorry, Lowell, we can't. It's gonna be like $2 trillion in gasoline or in power to bring it back. It's cheaper to get rid of them.
Yeah.
You can have my pension.
Wow.
Honestly, I would think that if they like the self-destruct mechanism in it, you could have it integrated first off. I think that was done more for adding drama and to allure to what happened and how happened in the dome.
You wouldn't necessarily want a nuclear explosive going off accidentally while the thing's attached to your ship.
The thing is, like, for me, when I think of a space, there's no accidents. If you made it that far, there shouldn't be. At least not internally. I get it. I
didn't have a problem with it being not integrated. I thought having to to manually set them was a good idea.
The reason I'm saying is like I felt like one thing that I didn't like about the whole thing is they shouldn't have destroyed them. They could have left it in the orbit of Saturn or whatever. They could have left it there and let that thing live on or whatever, create something automated, and God knows what we'll find. But they could have created some kind of new scientific research development because of that. So it was such a waste. And then they're throwing a massive
back in
amount of
20 years
waste.
and found xenomorphs.
No, and what they're creating a lot of like debris and waste by blowing that shit up.
But space is big, so they probably thought they could hide it.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, there were some iffy decisions made in the movie, but it was all to drive the plot. So
I guess to finish everything, then Ray and I are Team Lowell, and Robert is Team Three Dead Guys. But no, let me go with that. He's Team Three Dead Guys, but remember, Robert's not an asshole.
Robert cares so much he even cares about the assholes. So there you go.
Yeah, that's probably it.
So, seeing the science was smattered throughout the discussion, I kind of shot myself in the foot, as I said. So that kind of wraps up this episode of Science Fiction Remnant. Do recommend you check this movie out at least once. It will make you think. If you don't like thinking, maybe you shouldn't watch it. But you're listening to us, and if you've listened this far, you do think. You can help yourself at this point. So do check the movie out if you haven't already. And if you have checked the movie out already and have some thoughts about it, do join us on our Discord. We'd love to have you there. That's where the conversation continues. And it's pretty easy to get onto Discord. You do need a Discord account. You'll have to set one up if you don't have one already. But if you have one already, you can just go to the show notes below this episode on one of your favorite podcasters, and you will be able to find an invite link, and that will get you straight into our Discord. If you don't have Discord already, you will need to set up an account. And if you're watching us on video on YouTube a month later, you will, or post that, you will be able to scan the QR code you can see on the screen right now, and that will quickly get you through an invite link to join us on our Discord. So do consider joining us there. We'd love to have you. We'd love to talk to you about more science fiction. We'd love to find out what your favorite science fiction is, and maybe we could cover on the show if we haven't already. That would be cool. We also have a couple of websites. The first one is sciencefictionremnant.com. That's the one where we're trying to get everybody together to talk about your, my, and their favorite sci-fis. We do love to have you. Oh, I've got completely confused. I haven't done this for a long time, so I've mixed the two websites up. This website is our portal for the podcast. My apologies. So on sciencefictionremnant.com, you'll find our latest episode of the podcast, which may not be this one because you may be listening to this one some weeks, months, or years after it was posted. We also have some short reads there about topics to do with science and science fiction. They don't take too long to read, 5 to 10 minutes. So you could check one of those out during your lunch break, or if you're on PT on the way home or the way to work, give you something to read to keep your mind occupied and amused. Now, the website that I was describing incorrectly is the one called thisissci-fi.net. It's in its early stages at the moment, but that's the one where all the creators of sci-fi, we'd love to have you gather there and get involved with making that a portal to lots of different sci-fis, both classic and the ones that are being newly created. We hope to make that a real stepping off point for getting your sci-fi creations noticed, and also to talk about all the other fantastic sci-fi that's out there at the moment. We have a Substack. Substack is a website that you can go and visit and read the Substacks that you're subscribed to, where you get posts of information that talk about different things to do with writing sci-fi, stories about sci-fi, and things about sci-fi technologies that might be becoming poignant at the moment, and science fact that is floating around. And that's the sort of things that we're covering on our Substack. And of course, there are many other sci-fi Substacks on there that you could sign up to as well. And of course, you can either go to the website and check those out at your leisure, or you can have them funneled to you through your email on a semi-regular basis. to check out what's happening on those different Substacks. So do consider Substack. It's a great new way to get short snippets of sci-fi content to keep your sci-fi antenna wiggling. We're also very busy on Threads at the moment. It's the nicer X. So come over and check us out on Threads. We do get a lot of engagement there. There's lots of interesting talk about sci-fi concepts, sci-fi shows, and what we're doing in the podcast. We love chatting to the people over there. So do join us over on Threads, which is part of Instagram. It's the nicer X. So check that one out. We have a Buy Me a Coffee. It's basically a spot where you can drop us a few shekels to help with the costs of running the podcast. At the moment, Robert is absorbing those, but it's not free to make a podcast. Well, as one as polished as ours. So you could help us out there by dropping a few dollars to Buy Me a Coffee, and that will go towards keeping the podcast up and running. We have a hotline. We've mentioned this before, but you can leave us a message on there 24/7. Call 1-305-563-6334. That's 1-305-563-6334. You can drop the 1 if you're in the continental United States, but if you're international, you'll need to use the international dial tone for your country, then the code for the US, which is the 1, and then the rest of the number. So you can leave a message there for us. You can talk about what you think of any particular episode that you've listened to, or you could leave us some information about what you're doing in sci-fi at the moment. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're up for it, we will talk around your message. We'll play your message, and we'll talk around your message in a future episode. So do consider that and leave us a message there. Of course, the easiest way to get a hold of us is on our Discord. You can interact with us there in text. You can join us for watch parties that we do for the show, often do for the shows that we're about to record for. And of course, if it's a show that you particularly love, perhaps you even jumped on our Discord and suggested it, then you could join us on the show here and be our special guest and our area expert on that particular IP and help lead the discussion. So you could really get involved with this podcast, much like I did, because, you know, I came for a particular couple of shows and then ended up staying. So it does happen. But do join us on our Discord. We'd love to chat with you about your favorite sci-fi and find out what you're watching and find out some new sci-fis, because there's always new sci-fis coming on that we want to hear about, because sci-fi is our future and science is getting us to our sci-fi future. And we need to discuss it. We need to keep it current. We need to keep it out there. We need to keep the national budgets of science improving and going up so that we make more science and more sci-fi and more future, because without more future, we're going to be in trouble. And on that note, thank you for joining us for Silent Runnings, our topic for this week. And we hope you will join us next week for another episode of Science Fiction Remnant. Bye for now.
See you next time.